What is up, everyone on those intertubes? And welcome to tonight's Midnight Ranting. Is biblical slavery morally good? No, it's not. Well, that's right. We are throwing a after party on the subject from Standing for Truth's debate with our own James W. and Praise I Am, where they discussed and we are discussing, is biblical slavery morally good? So won't you join James W. and myself, Amy Newman, for a good time worth enslaving your neighbors? Woohoo! What is up, all y'all out there, misfits and all, on the intertubes?
Old faces come back to haunt us.
Wahahaha. James, the more that you look into the void, sometimes the more the void looks at you. However,
out from your dryer, otherwise you won't have socks to wear.
I do want to thank you all for joining us, like I said, on these inner tubes. If you have recently got a vaccine or booster shot, now is the time to activate your 5G chip. Boop, boop, new word order. It's weird. Anyway, thank you. And if you enjoy the show, please don't forget to like, follow on Twitch, or subscribe on YouTube. Because once you do, you gain access to that all button icon, which will send you reminders to see our premieres, like I was supposed to do it in there was so much stuff today. But we had to take a kitten to the vet, though she's almost better. Now she's over with the amoxicillin. And more fun live streams like this right here. What is up, y'all?
Modern medicine.
What is up? Modern medicine, exactly. We were going to pray and then take them to the vet, and then we're like, why not just take them to the vet?
Well, I mean, if your credit card gets declined, you can always be enslaved by the vet, right? But maybe in your case, you would end up enslaving the vet. And
that's right.
Enslave them.
And then you just enslave each other. You keep on enslaving each other until, well, I'm pretty sure it's a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Anyway, glad we don't live there and instead live in the amazing place where the Rachel Holland. We are going to be kicking off our Midnight Ranting, and after we give our little opening spiel, sponsored by Sugar Water. After we give, it's also what plants crave, our opening spiels, we will be kicking it off into the open mic where anyone, atheist or theist, liberal or conservative, can say what they want, come as you are, just not on my sheets. Sound like I heard a kitten. I just see Gizmo. Boom, 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 boom.
Gizmo, my new debate partner.
Woohoo! Gizmo should be everyone's debate partner. And continuing to just say hello up to what is up, Seasides? Sending love out there. What is up, Hillary's emails? Having such a sick puss is always sad. That is true. However, she is at least getting better. She had a little bit of an infection, but she got, and she had this eye stuff when we adopted her. But because of science, she's getting a lot of better. She is zippy, like, oh my goddess. She ends up everywhere, and my new nickname for her is Spider Cat, because, yes. But
We are
yes,
here, Defense, and
welcome.
your God doesn't exist, so
That's
must have happened
true.
somehow, right? We'll fill in the details later.
All the genomic information originated. Oh, well, that is from the fact that we have just all of this carbon going on this planet, and that we have a lot of liquid water. And when you have a lot of liquid water, and then you have carbon, it allows for these amazing chemical combinations to kick off, especially when you have energy being poured in 24/7 from the sun, if you see what I did there. But also on the seabeds in hyperthermal vents. Yes.
Hydrothermal, hypo.
That's right. Gizmo always likes to sit next to Daddy. Whereas,
Always watching. He's always watching.
yes, unlike Ultimated Science, who always likes to sit next to Dada. I think Ultimated said that he is going to contact. No, but he contacted me saying he was going to contact James of Modern Day Debate, and then possibly after that also here too. And so I'm looking forward to if he ever does. It's so interesting. He is also well. Can I tell you the two interesting things that I'm noticing? He is okay. We can agree that is totally off the charts. Whatever but when we put him in a room with other Christians, all of a sudden he becomes like, okay, come on, let's talk. Let's be able to have a conversation.
Right.
That's the guy getting hand jobs from Jesus. Yes. Yeah. So it's always, I guess, about perspective.
Okay, man.
We are sending so much love out there. What is up, Brooklyn? Do not know how you were able to stand that. Yes, let's get into it. Let's talk as we do our open. James W., you just got done a debate, and we have our first question of the night.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty familiar with Praise. I think most people in the community know him. So, there's a kind of a model that these apologists have. They come with the smugness, the condescension. You're going to get that. They're the teacher. They know all this stuff. You don't know anything, and it's just kind of something you have to deal with. You have to just push through that, and it kind of, in a way, they try to intimidate people. They try to intimidate people, prevent people from wanting to challenge that, because it can be hard for people to go through, especially if you're new to the debate community. But yeah, I knew that was coming.
I also have to say you were particularly calm. Like it would have been very hard to knock off your ship, so to speak, because it felt like you were just answering the questions calmly, giving back. It always seems with and atheists are guilty of this too, but just some specific apologists, it's always about yeah, and that's like the type of sound bites you get out of them, where you're like, if that even makes sense. Your pace was very good.
I mean, every debate I've done, right after the debate, you always think of like 10 things you would have done, could have done, should have said, would have said, things you forgot to do, things I could have done better to prepare. So, no doubt about that. If I were to do another debate, I would learn things from this one and try to do better next time. It's an evolutionary process. You're always learning and getting better. And, every time, if you think you did really good, you probably didn't do as good as you think you did. But if you think you did just okay, you probably did a little bit better than you thought. So I feel okay coming out of it. I feel okay coming out of it. I'm not going to gloat or say that I crushed him or anything, because there were some things I could have done better. But yeah, next time.
James W.,
Like
maybe
you
you're attempting to project. But this is what I mean. I felt like when I was just listening, were we listening to the same thing? What came
Right.
out of James's mouth did not sound like what you were typing down there. That is like a confusing. But we welcome you back, and I see Bubble down there. We're getting there.
It was terrible without you, C sign. So I mean, I'm so glad to see you back in chat. It's been really hard these past few months, I have to say, and you know, it was hard making it through some of these streams.
I know there is somewhere Titus is just sitting there with like a beer, and he's just like sipping, and something like the back of his hairs go on, and he's just like, I know there's nonsense going on somewhere there's going on. No, we would never say that about anybody.
I sent Otangelo on a stream.
I sense an orange yellow. Do you want a role play? I will say, if Otangelo, and I kind of have this, I guess, since Bubbles is here now, even though I don't know why they talk about it. But, you know, if we do want to talk about the genetic code, at any time, we can talk about codons. I can codon you all day, baby. We're ready to talk about some genetic material for no reason at all. I don't know why creationists talk about whatever they do, but they do.
Well, Jason, so hopefully we'll have Amy on soon with the Hovind debate. Maybe we might have made some headway with that tonight. Hopefully we'll get that done.
I feel like I vibed with, unusually with Kent, even though, you know, I'll sit here and completely explain his gravity experiments all day. I feel like my brand of humor has, like, it's not supposed to be on the nose. And so I think I do well, weirdly, with apologists and Dawa.
He was on his best behavior last time you interacted with him. You know, if anything, you do have to give the guy credit. He is a very experienced debater, so he's able to read people and read situations. So I think he figured out quickly that he needs to handle you. He needs to be on his game with you, or otherwise.
But can I ask, James? It's fine to be an experienced debater. That's easy after you've already been a new debater. Do you think he's a master debater?
I mean, with the help he's been getting from Matt Powell, I think he could be. Probably
each and every night.
Yeah,
twice in the shower. What is up, I draw stuff, and everybody out in there. If we didn't say hello to you, hello, keep on saying hi. We're going to try and just quickly, we'll go. In fact, we said enjoy the show, but if you super enjoy the show and want to support making us even more fun content, there are multiple ways. One is to send in a super chat. It'll get us shown up on the screen. We'll get to say and talk about your comment, question, or one-liner. Actually, like and prefer those too. But also, we have our best way to support us, our Patreon at patreon.com/Amy Newman. That helps us make even more of these fantastic shows and more of them. But also, if you would like to trigger the Young Earth Creationist specifically, our channel membership does have our evolving badge system in where it does not matter really what level you start at. Somehow, our God of time, somehow, it just evolves. That's crazy. Just accumulates.
Almost like a force of nature, right?
Almost like a force of nature. Anyway, you can continue to tag us at James W. and at Amy Newman, while we also send quick shout-outs also to James Wolfe, thank you so very much out there. Reminding you, we do really late night. I was thinking when to send out. Nah, I'll still wait. I still want to hold on to that link because the last time we sent that link out even a little bit early, and then they complained even more. You gotta cater to the young Earth creationists. I love you, young Earth creationists, but time has actually shown, at least from this podcast, that they are the biggest diva. The scientists and empirical skeptic minding people, they'll wait, take their turn, maybe. But yes, the creationists, apparently the word of God has like a very narrow span, and then they gone.
You only defend your beliefs for a very short window of time, otherwise, yeah.
Yes, or else warranty no longer valid. Anyway, sending love to James Wolfe as we howl at the moon. Sending love to Dale Fastel. We're kind of looking for empirical evidence. We'll see if we get any tonight. We sure got a lot of interesting apologetics for why it was the good slavery tonight. It's the works program. Chris Disciple sending love to Chris Disciple, who was on last night, who gave us a lot of love, and I just need to give him lots and lots of love back to him, because the skeptic and ranting community does include theists, it does include Christians, it does include any denomination, but also agnostics and atheists. Everything under the sun, sending love. To Rachel Holland, we saw her out there. Sending love, Rachel. Boom, 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 boom. Reminding us, oh my, we say everyone's name has a little shtick. We kind of have shticks. I have too many shticks. I have one shtick that sometimes grows. But Rachel Holland we talk about, slavery. And that tends to be, the only type of good slavery is, if you're on your knees and at least someone has permission to come. But, when you're doing it, the non-consensual slavery, there is no non-good consensual or non-consensual good slavery.
Chase Bank, they shouldn't be able to come to your house and just enslave you for 6 years. I mean, you did miss a payment now.
James, I hate to be the person to do this for you, but you tried to even get a payment plan to go through, but your browser crashed. And because your payment plan was not able to get through, you indeed owe money with Chase Bank. And so Chase Bank actually has a motto, a new one. It's Chase Bank, chase you. Oh yes, biblical morality.
God,
also, I couldn't bring it up in and we're almost done. I know the theist, I could feel it chomping at the bite, or the young earth. But I didn't want to bring it up. He brought up this. So I'm some half-ground, middle-ass motherfucker when it comes to morality with my situational ethics. But, he brought up not torturing of babies. And then, I'm sorry, but any Abrahamic religious person who wants to bring forward the notion of you shouldn't torture babies. I don't know if you've ever drowned. I'm hoping you haven't. Chances are, if you're not a ghost, and I don't believe those exist, you're not. But if you ever almost drowned, you know how bad it is. One of the worst ways to die.
Go down the wrong way. You know how that feels?
Yes, feel that for minutes. And once again, when you even say it like that, it sounds like a short amount of time. But imagine that 1 second. Now you have to do that over and over and over. Imagine that for seconds. And now imagine that for a minute. Now you've been doing this for over and over and over and over and over. And then you really don't pass out until the point that your system's about to start shutting down. Everything's going to start going into, and so you get the full amount of pain. And that's your God. And that was happening to all the babies. All of them. Once again, has nothing to do with slavery, except for the fact this is supposed to be the God that is the most that was the one thing he used. He used, if we can all agree on this one thing, can I get the people of this Noah pushing story can we all agree? I would love to get on that consensus. Let's do that right now. That this is objectively evil. Can we do that? Yeah.
Is it loving?
Yes. Hashtag loving God.
But
yes,
and that's the dichotomy. Like praise. Oh well, we can't enslave people because it says to love your neighbor. Well, it also says God is love, and yet He drowned the world. So obviously they didn't see a contradiction because they had it coming. That's the narrative.
They had
it coming. So enslaving your neighbor, they should be enslaved. That is loving. There's no contradiction in the way that they view things. We don't read documents in a way that forces them to contradict if they don't have to.
It just seems like an objectively moral God wouldn't. I hate to use that word. I was going to say wouldn't be that stupid. I hate to use ad hominems. I don't know. What, let me try and think that. You would think that God would be a little smarter. That sounds a little better, right? Anyway, sending love to Rachel Holland. We'll be rashing on this all night.
Absolutely.
Sending love to Senator Cato. Let's see. Who is dumber, the God or the people following him? And hey, we always get ragtagged, I think, by theists who think or that try and attempt to say that we use ad hominems a lot. I find that skeptics rarely actually believe that theists are dumber or stupider. We do believe that what they're saying is stupid. What they're saying is often contrary to everything we see and know in reality.
God, like his rendition of the Pharaoh in the Exodus.
But Shane also makes a very valid point in that there's only a limit that we can have, because at a certain point we have to call out the stupid. Not once again. We have to separate someone being stupid from a stupid viewpoint, because you can change viewpoints. A viewpoint is just the act of being convinced. Okay, and then our last sending love to Senator Cato is we have the separation of church and state. One of the most important things, because democracy kind of kicks autocracy and theocracy in the ass, secular society. And then the last, sending love. The last three to Ian Davenport.
Ian.
Reminding us that watchmaker arguments are horrible. Horrible.
Bullshit. Well, see, Science, if you have any evidence of a creator, I'd love to see it, but I haven't seen any yet. I see just conjecture, baseless assertions, arguments from ignorance. I don't see any actual evidence of a creator.
That is nonsense, because there has been the world, at least the written world, because who knows what it was on many cultures, but it had been theistic for so long. And ever since the Enlightenment, we've been pushing and kicking away from that. And we want evidence that's empirical. My joke is always, you guys tell us that your God is all powerful. Okay, let's put all powerful. Okay, and then the rational, they have it. Tweak this to maximally powerful. Okay, my claim is not maximally powerful. Okay, not very powerful. Not even very powerful. Not powerful. Powerful is a good word, a solid word. We've Occam's raised it. I don't think your God's powerful. Let's keep on going. And then over here, there's not very powerful. I think your God is not very powerful. This is where your God is. So, and I'll prove this to you. Can your God pick up a soda can? I mean, if you want to change the label, I can hide my hand over this. We'll pretend this is soda.
Well, I mean, the
hide
Bible
that
does
or
say
make
that
it float.
If two people ask for anything in His name, that it'll be done. So, I mean, I guess two Christians have never asked for world peace, because if they did, then we would have that. So.
Genomic, I almost thought that when I first read that, I was like, gnomes. I'm like, don't confuse your bubble gum for your sea science. Sending love to both of you. Genomic data exist. It's evidence of a creator. I'm not sure
That's
what
what
that
we
means.
call a baseless assertion.
Wait, hold on. You mean this? This right here? This exists? This right there? Yeah? Yes. The individual letters exist. They form into codons, and then they actually produce all of the different chemical combinations of our fantastic DNA.
Bubblegum says those are bases. Challenging you.
Oh, well, you need to make the base drop lower. I know. I'm sorry. What do you? Which one do you think is missing? By all means, this is the entire codeine list. There are no other codeine.
That's fine. It's just behind the scenes in another dimension. God is there making it all happen. He just hides himself, so you can't see him.
No. There are no gotchas, Bubblegum. We try to explain what the scientists. We're not trying to trap you. We're trying to explain things.
Even
that
though
is
she
the
is a
difference.
trap, that's
even though I am a trap. Something completely different. So sending love to Ian Davenport, sending love to the universe in your hand, the galaxy in your hand. Because we actually in science have models, and so we can explain how planets form. We can explain the diversity of life. The things that, creationists can't. Thank you so much, Matt Deig. Kind of just
anything, literally.
Rather be team science. Exactly. And then last, but certainly not least, we have a skeptic.
Thank you, Aussie Gold.
Bible study. Woohoo!
Appreciate it. It is a hard topic. There's a lot to cover, and it really is a lot. But
and they really try to.
We're getting there, Bubba.
Shine that. If you're eating, I don't want to say it, but shine that you know what. But yeah, sending love to reach us. Who reminds us that we have a skeptic Bible study. We are knee deep. I would say either elbow deep or however you want to go into Joshua. He lifts. He has tight abs. But sending love to reach us, reminding us that we read it chapter to chapter, one page at a time. Sometimes we get complaints that we read it too literally, which is exactly really to bring us back to this debate. That's really what I think we get accused of. James, you need to understand. Don't look at the words on the screen. You need to have someone else interpret the words and rub them in a way, and so they mean kind of the exact opposite.
No, exactly. It doesn't mean what it says. When it says they'll serve you forever, it doesn't really mean that.
No. It means that they'll have good time and bubbles all over their eyes. I'm sorry. I mean, googly eyes. And sending love one more time to all of our supporters, to all the people who send in super chats, all of the Patreons, and all of the channel members, but of course, all of the subscribers and viewers like you. And all right, before we open up and give everyone their opening statement,
guys.
That's righty. In fact, I'll wait to the very end. When James is finally ready to give his opening statement, we'll send it out there. We are going into, however, James and I's opening statement and then the open mic, because we are Midnight Ranting. And we are talking... Is biblical slavery morally good? Well, let's shorten the sentence. Is slavery moral? The short answer, no. Though the long answer predictably, is no. And I was only going that long so that you could grab something and beat the slave master, then run. Do it right now. And yes, the biblical version of slavery was every bit as horrible as the transatlantic slave trade, the fantastic biblical family values of tribalism, as my voice goes up, coming through. But don't take my word for it. Let's check out Leviticus 25:44-46. Both thy bondmen and thy bondmaids, which thou shalt have, shall be of the heathen that are round about you, and I hate those things, so European. Of them shall ye buy bondmen and bondmaids. King James Version. Kinky. Wait. No, this isn't the kind of maid with black outfits and petticoats. This is enslaving immigrants. And if you don't believe me, let's try again. With the NIV. Your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them, you may buy slaves. So when someone talks to you about, as we were saying, oh, someone, please help the women, the children, remember our family values. Well, how about when a man sells his daughter as a slave, she will not be freed at the end of the 6 years as the men are. Oh, if you wondered, there's like a little loophole very specifically for the indentured slaves or indentured servitudes. I'm sorry. Don't want to say the two S words. But the women, if she does not satisfy her owner, he must allow her to be bought back again. I'm sorry. Man sells his daughter as a slave. She will not be freed. If she does not satisfy her owner, that kind of sounds a little property-ish. That kind of sounds like the bad slavery. Yeah. So when someone asks, is biblical slavery morally good? The entire question is wrong. Does this slavery include pink, fuzzy cuffs? If not, then the answer is an apathetic, gigantic no. And this is something the almighty #loving God should have known. Thank you. And all right, before we truly open up, and I will send it out into the interwebs so you can disagree with us, I want to set up the man with the plan himself, who I thought did amazing on tonight's debate. The reason why we are talking about the subject, he comes here from just being over at the Standing for Truth channel after debating Praise I Am That I Am. However, James W., we are talking, is biblical slavery morally good? What are your thoughts?
Well, geez, I've been talking about that stuff all night tonight, but yeah, I don't think that it's good. I don't think slavery in any form is good. It's not necessary. We don't need it. Um, it was practiced widespread throughout human history. Doesn't mean people in the past were evil or bad or just terrible people necessarily. It just means that we have evolved our society to the point where we can recognize that it's wrong to reduce humans to property. And we probably shouldn't do that. We probably should learn from the mistakes of the past and try to build a better future. That's really the crux of what I'm talking about. I'm not here to necessarily condemn the people who wrote the Bible for the beliefs they had. They was just ancient man being ancient man. I tried to reiterate that several times during the debate tonight, but I think he kept going back to, oh, you just don't like the Bible. Or you're just, imposing your worldview on theirs, which is actually what I'm not trying to do. I don't think slavery is moral. I don't think it's good. I don't think debt slavery is necessary. I think it involves a lot of coercion, manipulation, a lot of potential fraud going on there, especially a system where you can't charge interest. I mean, why would you loan anybody any money anyway? It just seems like a scam, which, yeah, almost like you want people not to be able to pay back the loan. Almost like if you're a former YouTube apologist and you might loan money to people who have daughters because maybe you can accept one of their teenage daughters as collateral. Young women, teenage girls, are not collateral to be bartered with or traded. They're not a foreign currency. They're human beings with their own dreams, goals, aspirations, and abilities. But to reduce them to concubinage, to basically put a price on this, to relegate them to being a cum dumpster for a wealthy person, just one of their many concubines, because of the father can make some money doing that, is not good. It's not in keeping with the dignity of man. It is something that we don't do. We condemn, rightfully so. War, enslaving people that you capture in war, throughout history, also bad. A lot of people in war are not necessarily evil. It's two nations fighting against each other. Neither is usually inherently right or wrong. It's just a conflict. A lot of these soldiers are conscripted. A lot of them don't even have a choice whether they fight or not. But life was cheap in the ancient world. It really didn't matter. Human life wasn't valued. It didn't have the level of dignity that we give it today, which is funny because they're always telling us how it's that we're created in God's image. That's why they believe human life is so precious and has so much dignity to it. But they're ready to reduce humans to property, to slavery, over a payment of even a small amount of debt. Potentially could result in someone being enslaved. Could result in someone having to sell their kids into slavery to pay that debt. If you're forcing or putting a father in a position where he has to consider selling his teenage daughter to be a concubine to pay a debt or whatever, that's immoral. That's definitely not in keeping with the dignity of man. It is extremely problematic morally. We don't do it today. The fact that other cultures did it, yeah, they did. They didn't know any better. We do. Yeah, other children born in these unions doesn't clear that they got to go free. They could be viewed as enslaved for life. It seemed to set up a few different rules to make things a little bit more palatable for the native Israelites, but yet how much those actually applied and whether those de jure rules actually worked out. In fact, we don't know, because there was no Israel, there was no Moses. They were never governed under this. This was a post hoc history that was invented centuries after the fact. But it gives you kind of an idea of what they were thinking at the time when they came up with these documents. For him to blow off these massacres as myth, as not actual events, that's you don't see them taking that position too often. Most Christians take the position, yes, they happened, but they're justified. He took the position, they're myth. It never happened. Okay, I agree that it didn't happen, but the narrative that it presents is that it did happen and it's good. If you understand why these texts were written, then a lot of that makes a lot of sense. Why these stories were told. To encourage faith in Yahweh, to keep people in the religion. Yeah. Anyway, I've been talking a lot tonight, so we'll get everybody else on. Let everybody say what they want to say. Yeah. Can't wait to hear from you guys.
Thank you so very much, James. I do want to send love out. I know that she is backstage, but I saw the Duchess of Clutches just sending love to all of us for what we do on the channel. And so just want to send that love right back to you. And yeah, we're about to go into the open mic, which means that I also see Bubbles is also prior, but Duchess of Clutches is back here first. And so we are going into the open mic. We are Midnight Ranting on indeed. Is biblical slavery morally good? What's up, Duchess of Clutches? Wonderful to have you on. We are Midnight Ranting on Is Biblical Slavery Morally Good? And what are your thoughts?
Hey, Amy. This is actually the first time I joined something like this, so I don't know how my audio is.
Woohoo! You sound great, and welcome. I'm honored to have you.
Good. I'll maybe if I get up my Discord on my PC at some point, I might turn that cam on. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have a disagreement, I guess. I just saw the topic and kind of was just making some beef short ribs and wanted to stop by, but I don't really have any disagreements, so I don't know if I should leave.
No, you're fine. So welcome on board. We're about to give someone else.
I'm an atheist.
Okay. And I also, I think that the person we're going to bring in disagrees with almost everything that we say. I'm fairly sure if we said the sky was a color, but hey, maybe they will come to concession. Hey, Jake, where do you want to go? You want to go blue? We'll go sky is blue. Let's do it. All right, Duchess of Clutches, thank you so much. It is an honor to be here with you. And we got corporate operator Bubbles. Bubbles, wonderful to have you on. We are Midnight Ranting on Is Biblical Slavery Morally Good? I get the question. Hold on, let me do a prophecy. Hold on, because you gave me like a pre in the question. Is it going to be what is morality? Where does it come from? And thus, how are we even talking about this subject at all? But not enough of my preamble. Bubbles, what are your thoughts on the subject?
Man, it's been a while. I'm glad I'm finally on band. Well, yeah, I just want you to know.
You were never banned from the stream. I think that it must have been a chat thing that Titan. You might have been a naughty boy in chat. Who knows? James and I don't always we try to watch that, but sending love, Bubbles. Welcome back. And what's your thoughts on the subject?
Well, I hope to get on it. I have a couple questions for James, so I can't wait to get to that. Well. Anybody else coming on?
Yep, we got one more person. We're just going to get them on. I imagine they're going to worship a different God than you, just slightly curvier, but just slightly. And so we'll bring them on, and we will we'll go into it. And all right, thank you, Bubbles. Beebsy, welcome on. We are talking Midnight Ranting. Is biblical slavery morally good? What are your thoughts?
Oh, first may the curse be upon you.
A la curves.
But as for slavery, it's never moral, whether it's biblical or any other way.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. I guess we can close up the stream now. It was nice, everyone. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. All right, with that.
Again.
Again. Wait, you didn't take, I don't know if you took a position on biblical slavery. So maybe that was the winning position. We'll find out because we are going into open conversation. This is the girl deck that you have. Though keep on joining. The link is pinned on screen, in your chat. But Bubbles, I know you got questions for James.
All right, then I guess I'll shoot away. Well, James, why do you think slavery is bad?
It reduces property, strips people's humanity for pecuniary purposes.
Not sure if it's
you
just
were
on my
breaking up.
end.
You're breaking
Really
up a bit.
robotic.
Yeah, really
But
robotic.
it sounded like you say it breaks apart their humanity or their dignity.
Reducing human property, subjugating humanity for pecuniary reasons.
So you think it's bad because it forces people to do what another person wants? That's the definition of slavery. Is that why you think it's bad?
What is the
It's literally-
definition? Sorry.
It's when one person forces another to do what they want. You don't have to humiliate them. No humiliation.
I would-
That's slavery. I mean,
That's literally the
if you're
definition of
driving down the
slavery.
road and the speed limit sign, you're not being enslaved by.
Well, if you have
not
a
being allowed
different,
to
if you have a
drive.
separate, different definition for slavery, you can tell me that definition. But we're
Owning
not talking about
humans'
slavery.
property.
Bubbles, I don't
Because
think the
property.
issue, if I can just interject maybe for a second, I don't think the issue is with, oh, you're not humiliating them, so what's the big deal? I think it's more of a principled issue of it's wrong to own humans. I mean, that's my hot, spicy take, but
Well,
I'll let you guys
Raw
continue.
men.
it's what James thinks in this occasion.
Oh wow, that was
So is he
almost
going
a
to, like,
back
is he-
in the
is he-
kitchen moment? But we'll put that one for. We'll put that.
Yeah,
But
you know,
continue.
I am in the kitchen, so
Someone-
continue.
That's true.
I'm wondering-
Well, there you go.
So I'm wondering, does James think slavery is bad because it's bad to force others to do what you want, or is it just, or does he just think it's bad because it humiliates people? It humiliates people.
And own not
You're breaking up again, real bad. I can't. Not to try to cut you off, James, but I can't hear because you're really roboting a lot. Go ahead, try again.
He might be trying to adjust.
All right.
We've all
Well,
had those moments.
you hear my
nah, I'm not on my side. How about you guys?
It was still a little bit. It was going in the right direction. Oh, he's gonna reload.
Well, Duchess, I guess we can talk for the meanwhile, and you can tell me about why do you think it's bad?
I'm presently performing my womanly duties in the kitchen.
Oh, gotcha. No worry.
I'm just
As
kidding.
a good woman should.
What was your question to me? Sorry.
What do you think slavery is bad?
Oh, just my little quip at the beginning there. I just, as the principled notion, I think it's wrong to own humans.
I think it's wrong to.
Like, I don't care if they're being treated, quote unquote, well, or if they're being beaten or whatever. I think it just comes down to don't own.
Well, the
It's not a hard
government.
argument for me.
Well, the government owns its military. It owns its prisoners, just in the same way you own your children. So, I mean, are you pro your child being anarchistic against you?
You don't own your children. You are
You
stewards.
do.
I'm
You
sorry,
own your
Duchess.
children. The
No,
government
that's
doesn't own
okay.
your children.
That's a false equivalency. You don't own your children in the sense where you buy and sell them in the marketplace.
Well, so you're talking about force now. So you're talking
That's
about.
the Bible.
Yeah.
So you're talking about you're not forcing your children.
I'm not forcing my children to exist. No, I mean they're brought into the world. I don't have I can't buy and trade and sell them. I don't.
All right. Let me hear for James. James, can you say something? Maybe you're back.
Maybe his audio is better.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
we can.
perfect.
Great.
Okay,
What's the
James. So why is slavery bad according to you?
Because it turns people into property. It subjugates humanity for pecuniary reasons, for financial reasons. Subordinates humanity to money.
Subjugates.
Yeah.
Well, when you have a job, that's subjugation in a way. So is there something wrong with people having a job?
So are there things that we do in our day-to-day lives that we are kind of obligated to do? Do we have obligations? Yeah. Is it the same as being property? No.
So what
It's just
difference
apples
that
and
what
oranges.
differentiates what difference having a job from being a slave?
Being owned. You're trying to. The distinction is clear, but you're trying to.
Well, I'm trying to hear your. Well, I'm
I
trying to
can
hear
give a
what
very
your
clear
opinion.
distinction. There's a very
I
clear
can't,
distinction.
I can't tell you. I can't tell you what you think. You have to tell me what you think. Why do you think it's
Okay.
bad?
Bubbles,
Obviously,
can I just ask you a
choice,
question?
freedom.
Sure, but we still have to get back to James.
Okay, but I just have to add just clear very quickly. Does a slave obligatory have to have sex with their master?
No, you don't have to have slave unless it forces you.
You know what a
Can you
slave
explain
is?
further?
I feel like I feel like we need to go. Maybe it's not us that needs to go to what slave is, or maybe you're not asking. Like maybe it's the wrong tone. You're not coming to us like, "What's a slave?" It's like,
No,
guys,
I'm using the
what's a
definition of
slave?
slave.
I have no idea what a slave is.
I'm using the definition of slave, which is to force others to do what you want.
Yes.
Now James,
okay,
now
so-
James,
okay,
now
okay,
James
okay.
has a different definition, and I'm trying to get that definition.
Could you at least answer? Or did you? You said that they could, because it's really the follow up. Because
Well, yes, okay.
so
You're a
so
slave. You're a
you
sex
have
slave.
to have
Yes.
sex. Okay.
No, you don't. You don't have to. No, you don't have to have sex. It's only up to the master if he forces you. So
I feel
the
like
master doesn't have to use you
Sure.
as a sex slave.
Okay,
He
hang
doesn't
on.
have
You
to
have a
use
choice to say
or
no.
she.
that,
You don't
that
have to
should
be
be
a sex
without
slave.
saying.
Okay,
That's
Bubble,
a weird asterisk on there. Like if your master never wants to have sex with you, I guess you're never a sex slave. Technically true, Bubbles. Technically true. Duchess wants to talk.
You're still a slave, but you're not getting used for sex.
Oh, so
Because
it's
Yes,
all
doesn't want to
Bubbles,
use you
that
for
is
sex.
true. Because they don't want sex. That is the
Because
direct.
the
Not
master,
because they can't
not
force
because
you to want
not
to,
because the slave
because
doesn't want sex, but because the master doesn't want sex.
I mean, we're
Right,
agreeing.
the slave
I
wants
just.
is irrelevant.
Do you see where the evil
The one
comes
holding
in?
the force is the master. It is not the slave.
We agree, Bubbles. This
Okay,
is why.
so what's
I
the
don't feel
problem?
like. I feel like you're not coming to us like, what is a slave? I feel like
No,
you're
that
coming
is
to
the
us like, what
definition.
is a slave? Who knows?
I'm using the definition of slavery, but James is not. James is using a different definition. So I'm
Humans
trying
as
to get
property.
that definition
Humans
from
as
him.
property.
Okay, but so under my, I guess
Yes,
I'll
you
just
child
finish
is
my
property.
follow up.
Prisoners
So-
are property. The
so
Marines are property.
Under my
Are they
definition,
slaves? That doesn't follow, James. So unless you have a very niche
Whose
definition
property?
of
What?
slavery,
Who is property?
children are property to the
we get
parents.
Eloy and
The Marines are property to the state, and so are prisoners.
They are not property.
Yes, they
in
are.
The same way.
But do you see how my analogy fits? Because it doesn't matter
because-
what age, sex, gender. It doesn't matter what they are for the slave. The slave is at the mercy of the master.
Yes, but James is using a
and we're at
different
a job.
definition of slave. I'm trying to get that definition from James.
And I'm
I
telling
don't
you
get
over and
it.
over
I don't
again,
think you're
property
tracking, Amy.
equals
You gotta
property.
track.
You want something else.
I feel like this
So,
is the
like,
subject.
James is giving me this very vague notion of what it means to be a
Humans as
slave.
property.
Can I
Yeah,
Well, that's the
ask?
thing. Your children are property. Are the children my slave? Are the
They're
Marines
not
slaves?
Sorry for the cough. But
Are the
Duchess is
Marines?
going to say something after I think James and Bubble want to say one more. But then we actually have Eloy and Atheist Jr. backstage. We're going to get both of them in.
Sure.
So did you have any? Oh, you know what? I'm going to take the opportunity. We're just going to add in Eloy. And then Eloy, when you are done, just kind of tell us, because we're in the open conversation round, and we'll bring in AJ. Eloy, what is up? We are Midnight Ranting on Is Biblical Slavery Morally Good? Hope you're doing well. What are your thoughts?
Good evening. I watched the debate earlier, and I thought it was a very good debate. Both sides put out pretty good arguments, I believe, and I don't know that the question of is slavery good from the point of view of someone born in the 20th century into the 21st century after thousands of years of societies combining and growing and moving and creating other societies with all those things like religion and economics involved and family ties breaking, coming together, that I could properly say anything other than slavery sounds pretty crappy. But the specifics that were touched upon, there's a difference between the broad comment of slavery, even the biblical variation, and then the very specific details of people and places throughout history where situations occurred that were quite nuanced. But broadly speaking, I don't know that anybody could necessarily, well, anybody with, I guess, our modern or current understanding of the world, which we've been informed on since upbringing, due to the society that we live in. There's no way to separate it properly, and if you try, you're always going to sound slightly off, because there's going to be another person out there, or many, or countless, that are going to have objections as towards your point of view. There's no way, and that's why I always come up here and sort of like put forth the idea that people are way too dynamic and way too contrarian and way too everything to I guess umbrella every single concept. But as far as what Bubbles was saying and asking James, I found it very interesting, because I don't know. And this is an example of me listening and getting something probably slightly different, but maybe Bubbles will be able to, I guess, correct me. It sounded like, because I also have these assumptions in my head, it sounded like you were asking for the definition of slave to James, because he may, and this is me assuming a lot of stuff, because he may also have, from our perception, a particular political, philosophical, which he's admitted to in various moments in other debates, points of views that have a different tweak on how much you can be compelled by external forces and how that crosses with slavery and whatnot. Well, maybe I'm overthinking it, but current day today, your question about, well, when you work for someone and so on, is that considered slavery, or all these things? So I was thinking in those terms. Was I close or not at all?
Yeah, you were pretty close. So when I asked James to give me first question, I asked him why do you think slavery was bad? Well, he didn't say, he wasn't using the standard definition of slavery. So he's got his own definition. So I asked him. Now I was asking question for him to flesh out that new definition of slavery, and he just says it's people owning others. Well, you own your kids. Are your kids slaves then, by this new definition that he's proposing?
Right.
And so it's very vague. It's
we reject your contention that children are owned by their parents. Children are under the care of their parents. Children are not.
They're owned by their parents.
Well, you're using that.
They're owned by the parents in the same way like the Marines are owned by the government.
We would not.
Not to swipe.
We don't use them in the same way, though, right?
No, we don't.
You're trying to force us to use it the way you're using it, and we're just not going to. It's
Not to
gonna
swipe
work.
this away from you guys, but I just wanted to wrap up my bit. I did have, I know I laid out the question, so it begs the question, but I wanted to finish up the thing that I had, and then I'll
Okay.
step back.
And we'll get Atheist Junior in.
So, well, by the way, the definition of I looked it up as far as Oxford, and it's a person who is forced to work for and obey another, and is considered to be their property, and an enslaved person. There's also a device or part of one directly controlled by another, and there's a few other definitions. But putting that to the side, across history, as you know, in your particular lives, you have a story that's specific to you with family members and your own work and the things that you do. That's quite, you can write a novel if you really sat down with just your life. If you expand that out across history back in time, it becomes volumes endless, let's say. Slavery depended, the specifics of slavery depended throughout the history of slavery across the world, and there were certain things that were acceptable and weren't acceptable. But the umbrella slavery, it sounds like a bad thing right out the gates. But in certain societies, they had rules, laws, where in some cases, and it still doesn't make it right nor good nor comfortable nor none of that from our point of view today in 2023. But in some societies, a slave could actually go to a court even while being a slave and present danger, harm done to them. And there was a whole, so you could look all that up. It's part of our human history. In some cases, in some societies, a slave could leave their position or their state to a better one if they paid off their enslavement or this or that. Does it make it right? No, it makes it all, pretty terrible. But the point is that there's more nuance in the whole thing. But as an umbrella category, from a 2023 point of view, nothing that says subjugating me and my free will is a comfortable thing. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Eli.
I think we got a no to slavery. After all that, which I'm happy. I'm glad to hear all that. I'll take the nuance.
What do you mean? What do you mean after? Wait, no. Wait. What do you mean after all that? I purposely. Okay. The important part is all the nuance. It's not the bottom line.
That's why I said that. No. I didn't mean to say. Maybe I said it too emphatically like that because I like having the nuance. I like having you on, Eloy.
You were very emphatic, Amy. It was like so emphatic that I had to just burst out like that.
Because can I tell you something? This is one of those where I joke with James. I joke with him every time we bring up this subject. I go, how daring of you. In insert year, you're going to defend that slavery is bad? Now, I guess pre the past few hundred years, that's a good joke. But now, I guess I am a little bit, how should I say this? It annoys me, the apologetics for slavery, because
but they were. I'm sorry. Let me stop. I'm gonna. Sorry, Amy. Go.
You have to get EJ.
No. And yes, and like I said, I shouldn't have to, because that was actually. I should have said it in a different way or not said anything, because I want you to be top level. Slavery is bad. There are nuances to it where there's maybe what you were saying. Here's what, could I steel man your position if I was getting it wrong? What you just said towards the end.
I would be happy.
Okay, you were saying although they were slaves, certain slaves were able to go to the state or whatever body in which case they thought they were governed or had a disciplinary action wrong and veto it or some manner of such.
Some form of redress of their grievance.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And so I'll take that. I'm okay with people saying there are. I'll tell you why it's not to me the good slavery versus the bad slavery. It's kind of like the how bad was it slavery? Because what it is that if you were, I guess you had a human being who decided never to abuse you ever. still
So,
doesn't
James,
mean that they should be able to own you as their property.
No, the bottom line from our point of view in 2023 and for the past 100 and so years is also riddled, you could say, although it sounds negative, with the lessons of the past in our particular social cultural condition. And so you can't, okay, for instance,
We'll give you 30 seconds, then we really got to.
Yes,
Okay,
and now because we actually have 3 people behind stage now.
I'll wrap it up with this. You are a skeptic, but you're actually in a roundabout way, and this might sound a little bit brutal, but you're a Judeo-Christian skeptic, Amy, because although the connotation is a religious one, it's part of our societal, it's built into the structure as we've grown. So if we don't take a mirror and put it in front of our face and listen to the things we say, we start fooling ourselves thinking that we're enlightened and everybody in the past was just completely shelled in darkness. But that's not the history.
That's not what it is not that we are enlightened and that they were idiots. It's that we know better now, and so anyone who defends that practice now is we can go keep on going back. Eloy, I actually, like I said, it was actually lovely to have you. Welcome on board. Welcome on board. We are Midnight Ranting. Atheist Junior. We are talking. Is biblical slavery morally good? Lovely to have you on. And what are your thoughts about the debate or the topic itself?
Yeah, I would just like to say I think James did a great job in the debate. So another W for James. W.
Thanks so much, Opie.
Yeah. And I feel like the topic of the debate, I feel like I made a tweet about this, that if you're going around saying, hey, debate me on biblical slavery, bro, that's kind of a weird look on you. Like if you're going around challenging people to debate you about slavery, that's kind of weird. And if you just take the word biblical out of the topic, everybody would answer no. But you add the word biblically, and then all of a sudden it makes a big difference. I don't really understand what the difference between biblical slavery and just slavery is. I don't think the slaves really care about the distinction. But yeah, I agree with James that I completely reject the idea that children are the property of their parents, because my property has no rights. If I wanted to, I could legally take a hammer and smash all of my property and none of you would care. It would be totally moral. I wouldn't get arrested. But I can't do that to my children, can I?
Well, kids don't have a right to drink.
And soldiers aren't property of the government either. They're government employees. The government can't murder a soldier or beat them with
that's their whole job. That's literally their
job. It's a job, right? But they're not property.
No,
because they have rights. They give up some of their rights when they
that's right. They give up their rights.
Make it so broad that everybody's a slave anyway, so it doesn't even matter.
That's your definition. That's why I'm saying it's so broad.
No, it's definition bubble.
No,
that's your definition.
How's my audio? I'm back on my PC.
You sound great.
Bubble, I just wanted to get from you, and I am a bit late to the kind of party here, but I didn't see the debate earlier, James. I've watched a couple other of yours, but Bubbles, what is your, like, you're asking a lot of questions from everybody, but what is your kind of prescription for the situation? What do you think ought to happen?
Well, I don't believe in odds.
Okay, well, debate's over.
Yes, he was asking us morality questions, and as far as I can tell, Bubbles told me he does not believe in morality. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
So what do you believe in?
I want to ask James, do you think force is a necessary requirement for slavery?
Obviously.
Dude, are you like scared to talk to ladies or something?
Well, that's the thing. I don't think James.
I'm sorry.
How you get cooties?
Do you believe that, James?
I don't think it's necessary.
There you go.
Coercion. These relationships are not on equal paring, but these people are getting financially exploited and enslaved.
James, you don't think force is a necessary requirement for slavery? So you have a very broad definition of slavery where you can pretty much name anything to be slavery.
Humans as property.
Yeah, that's the thing. My kids are
I
my
would
kids.
have to disagree
And
with James.
My kids are my property legally.
We reject that concept that.
Well,
They're
that's
property,
just
they're
your
not property.
opinion. That's
Right.
your opinion now.
Sure. Okay, you're wrong. I'm right. We reject it.
No, you think you're right. And you can just, and I can just do that. Like, I can say you're wrong and I'm right. That's all you're
Hey,
doing.
Are you saying that that force isn't a part of slavery using his wrong definition, or
I'm saying it.
The
I'm saying
definition.
he's trying to make it per se that it has
The
to be
definition.
forced.
He doesn't think he doesn't think slavery force is necessary, according
Well,
to the
Because
definition.
he would say, "Oh well, debt slavery. I mean, you agreed to take the debt, and then you can't pay it back, so that's voluntary."
I think James is trying to avoid a gotcha of something that Bubbles is trying to.
No, because I'm using the standard definition, but James is not.
Can
So
we?
James
you're not using a standard definition of property, though.
I am
No,
legality.
you're not.
It deals with
No,
legality.
because parents don't legally own their children.
They do.
Children to be property of the parents. You disagree, so you're
They
not
are
you say
legally.
that.
When
Yes,
somebody
legally.
gives you a straight sort of question and they put it out there, there is the in this sort of scenario there is the assumption of am I staring straight into a gotcha moment, possibly this and that. But if we're working at this with honor and being straightforward with it, the question should be answered, and traps shouldn't be necessarily laid unless it's an intellectual way of doing. But there shouldn't be any sort of like a snake oil on the side of the road type thing. So
Well, that's the thing.
I would answer
James,
it, and then I would
James
be able
is
to
laying down.
Google-
That's the thing is James is laying down a trap that's inevitable, in which the Bible is promoting slavery,
Right.
because by his definition, anything is slavery. So anything in the Bible will be slavery.
See, Eloy,
So he's laying.
Eloy, I agree with you there. It should be easy because any of these intellectual nonsense traps that people create, they generally have weaknesses in them. And so
This is
if
what
you
James
just
is doing.
calmly go through the. Oh, I agree. That is what James is doing. But and we'll go back.
You agree?
We got. Yes, I
By the
when
way,
we
I'm not
ask
blaming.
you-
I'm not blaming
being-
James. So just because I don't want to leave.
No, I understand, Eloy. I'm just.
I think that
you got to
James-
realize the person we're dealing with here is not a.
Well, being a human
shall we
being,
say, good faith interlocutor. So
James, you just admitted you won't be in good faith.
I said
Okay.
you're not a good faith interlocutor, Bubble.
James,
Is
you
this
just
like the
admitted that you were using a
We're
definition
at I
of
know you
slavery
are,
that
so
wasn't
am
good
I.
faith.
And so we're
What's
going
not getting
to
through?
Mark Reid. He's doing a raid on apologists. We got Mark Reid. We have Alyosha, who I saw in the debate, and Stephanie. We are going to get all three of them in one at a time as we keep on having fun.
Mark
open
Reid is my
discussion.
debate hero, by the way. Just gotta throw
Mark
it out
Reid
there.
is an amazing debater.
Huge fan.
Everybody can attest to that.
That's right. In fact, he's going to come here to tell us all why biblical slavery is not morally good. I hope you are having a good time, Mark. And what are your thoughts about the debate or just the topic itself? Because apparently this is still a debate topic.
It's still a hot topic, apparently. Yeah, thank you so much, Amy, and it's good to see all of you, James and Bubbles and Duchess. Thank you so much, Duchess. That's really nice. I really appreciate those kind words.
Oh, yeah.
Eloy, good to meet you. Beamsy, Atheist Junior, who I love and adore. Atheist Junior is wonderful. Check him out. As well as Amy, if you have not subscribed, subscribe now because she does amazing content and things like that. Okay, so let's get started. And I changed my name to Mark Reid just to make you happy, Amy. So yeah, it is now a Mark Reid. Get ready. No, it's fine. So there was a lot that I heard, and I do have to apologize to James. I was busy and I didn't get home in time to see the start of the debate. I saw basically the just before the outros kind of thing, but I really wanted to be there, and I was like, but I did get a couple of questions in. I hope you knew I was there in spirit. If not,
Oh, I saw it. I appreciate it.
Oh,
Mark.
thank you. Yeah, I really
Holding
wanted
Praise's
to be
feet to the fire a little bit. He was.
Yeah. So
walk away.
I'm sorry I'm late to the party as well. I was over at Praise's getting him crap for that. So you can see that on my channel when I upload it, I guess. But that'll be fun. That was.
We like to call that fashionably late. Just cool to the party.
Yeah, and enough to hear some stuff. So Bubbles, I don't know what you're going on about. Children are not owned by their parents. Their parents don't own them in any way. They are their caretakers. They're responsible for them. They get to just say what they do in the interest of taking care of them, but they're not owned by them in that sense. We do not own others as property. Now, this idea that we're using some kind of weird definition of slavery that is outside the norm. I get my definition of slavery from the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights. Basically, that is from a convention in 1926. It's been ratified by every country in the United Nations. So it is you cannot get a more normative definition of slavery than that. So much so it is written into law in individual countries of what that is. Now, they've got a very simple definition, so listen closely. Slavery is the status or condition of a person over whom any or all of the powers attaching to the right of ownership are exercised. So all that it is to require to be slavery is that you have some control over the right or I guess the privilege of owning any of their rights. Okay, so it's not talking about ownership of the person, it's talking about owning the person's rights, owning their right to food, water, owning their right to these other things. And it is in control of that power over the rights that you have power over that person. Now, I want to answer your question very succinctly. So you said, is force required? So this is where it gets complicated, because I would say physical force is not required, but some sort of force has to be applied. For instance, duress is a type of force. If you hold a gun to someone's head and say, hey, do this, you're not physically doing anything, but there's an incredible amount of force being applied, and that force is called duress. So it's important to understand these terms, what it means by duress and what it means by force, because in certain situations, people can be in debt slavery. They are forced to work and they'll never get out of that work, and they're forced into that circumstance. Now, physical force isn't applied, but the force that is applied is duress. They are basically put in a situation where somebody takes advantage of that situation in order to make them do something against their will. And that's what I would say is required for slavery, and debt slavery certainly would cover that. It's interesting to note that the United Nations considers debt slavery to be a form of slavery, funnily enough. It has it in the name, but sort of indentured servitude is another name for it, where you are basically working for nothing in order to pay off a debt. That is a form of slavery. The debt to the person, you get nothing. You cannot turn that situation into advantage, because what happens is that people will charge you for board and food, and you never work your way out of that debt. You are there forever. In fact, you're debt.
Likely take your ID, credentials, passport, whatever, to prevent you from having any, put you in a different country, put you in an unfamiliar environment.
Yeah, so that's sort of like having power over your right to autonomy. It's taking away your autonomy from you to be able to travel liberally, and you've committed no crime.
All right, then. So okay, first of all, yes, children are your property. And second of all, yes, we do take away the rights away from children and sometimes adults. So even by your definition, you still have civilians who are property, which are slaves by your definition.
Not sometimes.
Second of all, third of all,
are property.
Yes.
By definition.
Yes.
So that doesn't make sense then.
I think you're just getting confused.
I'm going by the definition
you have
James
control
presented.
over your children.
Can you sell your children?
I'm going by the definition James presented.
So
you are presenting a different definition from James.
He's not here.
James hasn't spoken in like 20 minutes. Why don't you stay on topic?
Property. You're trying to define property. I didn't define property.
Now I'm rebuttaling, dude. Now I'm rebuttaling Mark's definition, because he's got a different definition from you, James.
The worst thing is to be rebutted. I hate it. But no, rebuttal me. Go on.
I just did by your own standard.
Okay. So can you sell your property?
Did you include that in your definition? You can add it if you want it.
Within
you want to add that?
Within the definition,
Well, he's trying to add he's trying to add a new category.
Within the definition that Mark
Let's trying to cut each other off.
You're getting off.
By the way, Bubbles.
I was
Bubbles,
replying.
Bubbles,
I just wanted to say that within the definition that Mark offered, there was leeway for Bubbles to say what he said within that definition, even though it's nuanced, but within that, because it's some of these conditions, I'm paraphrasing. So it could be any of those, and a child, in theory, would fall under some of those conditions.
Well, no, because we don't.
Yes, it would, Mark. Stop being dishonest.
Yeah, I'll just speak now. And then I'll have a question for you, Bubbles. I think you know what it is. Some of the rights that we ascribe to adults, we don't ascribe to children. For instance, adults have the right to consume alcohol or consume all kinds of things, but they don't have that right. So the right to be independent isn't exactly leveraged on a child. They're still not owned. They're still not slavery. But what we're talking
I'm going
about,
by your definition.
Adult human, excuse me, Bubbles, an adult human has the right to autonomy. And that's part of the right that has been sort of given power to somebody else. And that is the definition of slavery that I'm using, the one from the United Nations.
Yes, even by your definition.
Thank you, Bubbles, every country around the world.
One more back and forth.
You can say they all have different definitions.
Question. I'm sorry. Bubbles, can you sell your property?
I don't know. You tell me. By your definition.
Yes,
you can sell your property. Yeah, sure.
Well, then you can destroy it too.
Can you sell your children?
No, is that your definition of slavery?
So children aren't property. Thanks for playing. Cheers.
Oh wow, what a dishonest cop out.
Okay, there you go. You both had final things.
Do you want to add that to your definition? Wait, Mark, do you have to sell people for them to be slaves? Wait, no, Amy.
You can add.
Amy.
You're waiting. We got two people behind
Amy,
stage.
you didn't let me do a rebuttal.
But I'm not saying children are slaves.
Bubbles, just hold it on, and then you can have as many rebuttals. You can keep on going back and forth. But Aloysia, welcome.
Yes.
I think I saw you at the debates. And if not, I do want to say welcome on board. We are Midnight Ranting on Is Biblical Slavery Morally Good? And what are your thoughts about the debate, the topic, or anything we would talk about tonight?
Well, I had to come over to the Atheist channel to get a word in.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
It was good to see you. I always enjoy talking to you.
No, I just slavery in the broad sense, and then in biblical slavery, which I don't even think we got to the point with on the other channel whether it was everyone agreed that it was released every 7 years. But regardless, you're going to have, whether it was voluntary, whether you're buying somebody who voluntarily, you're buying the strain, all these arcane rules around it. Broadly speaking, the biblical, air quotes, definition of slavery was an indentured servitude. And if indentured servitude is wrong, then it's wrong. But it seemed like the biblical solution to it was mediating, even in spite of, they had tithes for the poor, and there was they had 3 tithes. Anyway, even trying to keep the poor looked after, that there was going to be an inevitable people who ended up in that indentured servitude state. And it's probably the best, worst way of dealing with it, something that's inevitable in the social structure. I don't see that biblical slavery with the release every 7 years, and a lot of the structure and the safeguards around it and all that was, owning another person as we understand it today. But it just seemed like it's just kind of dealing with an inevitability in any culture.
But they don't get released every 7 years.
Some do. That's not true. Some do go free, others don't. If you're a slave that you've bought from a stranger in the land, It says specifically Hebrew servants go free after 7 years, and it also says specifically that women don't go free as the men do.
Well, that passage, and then we started that on the original thing. That, you got a first verse, they're not going to go out as the men servants do, and then immediately rolls into having a dowry and the consideration of marriage and all that. And what I'm looking at in my reference materials is that this is kind of a bundle about he's selling, air quotes again, his daughter to get married. And, obviously that's, a hot topic today in terms of women's rights. But yeah, and then in terms of them going out, that seemed more like sending them out into the fields and treating them like an ordinary slave. And again, that kind of rolled back into buttressing that it was intended as a marriage thing. And then again, the stuff I'm looking at said if she didn't get the dowry, then she could sue for divorce and go back. And there's a lot of protections around that in that culture for how women were treated, at least in terms of going for a wife. Now there is concubinage, another sticky issue, but
happens.
Yep. It's OnlyFans now, but again, I don't know if there's any way around that in any culture. You're going to bump up against those sorts of situations.
One day
I think education is the way around that kind of stuff.
Keep going, Alicia. I just got a couple things to push back. I'm going to push back on this, man.
Go for it. Yeah, go for it, Mark. Go for it.
I gotta. You do.
The only thing I do have to check. I got to check on my stuff about because all the Jewish case law. I mean, the modern day Jews, they've gone through all of this, and it's easy to look up something that sounds extreme in the Old Testament is, they take to be kind of a hypothetical, and it's a case law, and you kind of build this thing around it. Yeah, go ahead. No, I do need to check on the 7-year thing.
Well, can I ask before, Mark? Do you have them written down?
What written down?
Any of his points? Or you're just going to rebut them?
What you were going to say?
Oh, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, can you hold it? Yes. Okay, cool. So, I think I maybe Bubbles really did just have to go. I felt like he's like, oh, we can't have someone new in here, and so he left. Though maybe I have you wrong, Bubbles. Maybe you really did have to go. In which case, I hope that we tuck you in. I hope you have a good day. Yes. Well, it's like
rest in peace.
It's a conversation. It also annoys me just because if that is true, like I'm fairly sure that other Christians or other theists, because I don't know what the fuck he is. He defends a lot of the Judeo-Christian stuff, but he's not a Christian. So, but whatever. It was lovely having you on, Bubbles. Mark is about to rebut those, but in a second, and then we'll go back over to Stephanie. What is up? Yes, we are Midnight Ranting on Is Biblical Slavery Morally Good? What are your thoughts about the debate, the topic, or anything we talk about tonight?
You load 16 tons. Okay. What do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. Oh, my soul to the company store.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Let's get real here. Slavery's bad. Doesn't matter how you sugarcoat it. There's no sugarcoating it. You cover it with fucking molasses. It's bad. It's bad shit. Bad juju. And if it's biblical slavery, it's bad. If it's Hindu slavery, it's bad. It doesn't matter. It's just, come on. Really? How do you defend that?
It's sad we have to debate this still, but we do.
Indeed. It was
honest to Christ, it's just bad.
Like, I understand defending that the whole, it was the people of the time. You can't blame people back in the day. What annoys me is more the people that try to sell us on that it's what we should do now, or that it was moral. And
I think you can't blame people back in the time. I think you can blame anybody who has the fucking temerity to assert that they have the right to another person's labor with no consideration as to their well-being. I think that's bad.
I know Mark
rise to presentism. It is presentism, which is basically they didn't know any better. They hadn't learned what we have learned over the time. They've not had the benefit of the science and education that we have had. So sort of judging them harshly for doing it is kind of like, well, would you judge a dog harshly for doing something wrong? It doesn't know any better.
And I would separate out that.
I'm sorry, Mark, I disagree.
Okay, no, that's fine. You can really want to.
I honestly, and this is particularly because I really don't believe people have changed in tens of thousands of years. I think that people are people, and I think that human nature. Yes, we've come to different. We've accumulated knowledge, but I think that human nature hasn't fundamentally changed. That's because I'm maybe a pessimist.
But I think we could separate that out. Like I agree with both of you, because what it is, because I've often heard comedians or a specific bit say, if you were back then in slavery or whatever, we all say we would be the person. I think there are some archetypes of people. I think, this is just me, this is my biased opinion, I have no idea whether this would be true or not. I think I would always have been against those sort of things because I am that rebel archetype that I don't really care. I only care about what is right. I don't care what the law says. And that I have been proven that throughout my life. And so the where I parse it out is that a lot of I hate to say the normies, the plebes, I don't know how to say this, the institutions of power, the elders and all of that, they wrote and created this book, and they said that this was from God, and that slavery is then condemned, or at least not condemned, condoned. The opposite of condemned is condoned by God. And so then all of the plebes, it doesn't really matter to until you become a slave owner. And then you're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to start using this. And I'm religious, and God said I can. And you know what? When you put your Bible in front of me, and so I don't know, I see both. But the
other thing I would say is that if you were a slave before the Christian era or after the Christian era, before the Common Era, after the Common Era, if you were a slave, you'd probably think slavery sucked.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think if I could add something, I think I'd agree with Stephanie. You could make an argument that they did know better because they made the distinction between enslaving the
exactly
versus
the
outsiders.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I think both of you have. I agree more with I agree more with Mark as far as looking back. Well, I did mention that in the beginning, but I agree with Stephanie. It's very difficult to place ourselves back in time and guess what we would have done. We know from this point of view, but we're informed currently due to all that came before us. So in a sense,
sure.
I'll just say this, in a sense, we're all here now at this juncture, but I believe that we're all, as humans, capable of all the good things equally as all the bad things that humans are capable of, put in certain.
Non-Chomsky agrees with you. Yes,
Yeah,
I
so
agree with that.
I'll just leave it at.
Chomsky famously said that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I
present
agree.
a hypothetical.
I've
Go
got
ahead, Mark.
no idea what I would be like if I was raised in a Roman household. I'd love to say, hey, I wouldn't think that slavery was great and I'd have this, but I don't know that for sure. I just can't know that. I think because mostly I have from European descent rather than Mediterranean, I probably would have been a slave in that circumstances. And yeah, you're right, I'd have a problem with it. But I don't know what I would be like if raised in those cultures. So I think that the idea of historians looking back and avoiding presentism, putting our morality on them, is a good idea. However, I will say this, there is absolutely no excuse for trying to make apologetics for that slavery in the Bible today. That is reprehensible, that you're trying to say, hey, it wasn't as bad as we know it was, because historians have looked at this and said, hey, this slave system exists, wasn't as bad as the antebellum South, was still a form of slavery and was still really bad. So that is what I find inexcusable.
Well,
So I
in all
agree.
societies, there are things that aren't ideal, and there's some things that they just are what they are. There's really no easy way to change it. I think maybe that might be the best hope that being put in that time. It would be something you wouldn't like. It might leave a bitter taste in your mouth, but it just might be one of those things you'd have to say, well, it is what it is. It's one of those unpleasant things about reality that there's just no way to fix. And
I am curious. I'm curious about something. I'm curious about something.
The African American experience, which is roughly the closest, if you're American, which is very close in time. It was a very different scenario than, but similar in many ways than other things that came. And we have it closer to us in time to see the effects and whatnot. In a closer.
I think
that
the
wasn't.
tricky.
Well, let me just wrap this. It was something where your humanity was completely, basically, you have this phenotypical and you have this, so you are not even a human. And throughout history, there were atrocious scenarios, but there were some scenarios that were, and it doesn't make it an excuse or not, but there were scenarios that were slightly different. It's different in that you could go and petition, let's say. Big deal from our point of view, but comparing all these things, which is hard to do, probably the most recent one is the most shocking one and the most devastating one.
Before you go off on a tangent here, I
No,
just
I'm
want
done.
to
I'm
get
done.
it. Okay, thank you. I don't know how well I've thought out this analogy, but I think the issue comes up where the line between you didn't know and you ought to know is kind of blurred in these sort of situations.
Right.
I think now when you get into, especially things in the 20th and 21st century, there are certain cultural practices that I would say, okay, you ought to know that that's not good. You ought not to continue doing that. But there are things that are so psychologically ingrained in some people, just kind of based on their environment, that the level of culpability they have for their actions, I think it's less, not none, certainly still high, but less than if
Mitigated.
somebody were to do it. Yeah, exactly.
I think AJ wanted to say something.
Yeah, I'd like to present a hypothetical situation to the panel. So, if you were transported back in time, let's say that you're an Israeli, you're a citizen, like you're a landowner, and you have like 30 slaves and house servants. Would you free the slaves, or would you continue the lifestyle that you already have, assuming that you're coming from the present with all your current morals?
I think that's. It's. That's like asking Elon Musk, would he give up $100 billion?
That's what I'm saying. I wouldn't.
You know,
I mean,
it's
So
and it's also the question of it's easier for a rich man to pass through. It's easier for a rich man to whatever pass the eye of the
Camel
pass
through the
camel-
needle
yeah.
hole.
yeah, blah
Yeah.
blah blah. Yeah,
Easier
You know,
for a
it's
camel to pass through the eye of a needle
yeah.
than to enter the kingdom of heaven.
It's a that's just what the hell. I mean, given your circumstances, would you give up your life of that you're the life that you've become accustomed to for something different? I mean, it's like
there was the name's
maybe not.
But there was a relatively well-known slave owner in the antebellum South who became enlightened, and he realized and came to the conclusion that slavery was immoral, and he was conflicted. Trying to figure out what would be the best thing to do. Should he just free all his slaves and just send them out there? What he ended up doing is he decided that he would keep them enslaved, but he would just make the conditions just the absolute best. He would just treat them like amazingly and just make it like the best slavery that it could be. Yeah.
That's
but he wasn't
noblesse oblige. That's noblesse oblige.
Well, the thing is, if he frees them, that they could potentially become a target of violence from the people who hunt down runaway slaves, or if he frees the slaves, he might even become a target.
What economic place would they have? There were limited opportunities for free blacks in the South at that time.
Right.
They were second class. They were far from first class citizens. They, wasn't actually rosy for them.
This is the conundrum of slavery, because it's not just the slave who's enslaved, it's the master who is as well. Because the master is enslaved by the notion that other people are inferior. The master is deluded by the idea that there is some inherent right of one person to dominate another.
No, I don't.
Hear me out. And to be obligated. It's the white man's burden shit.
No. Because what we're talking about in slavery is that you have rights that have been subsumed to another person, and that the slave owner still has all of their rights and freedoms. There's nothing that they have subsumed to anybody else under that situation.
And they're enslaved.
Hang on, Stephanie, I'll let you go. So they're not enslaved by anything unless you're using that word metaphorically. And that's fine. If you want to say, hey, metaphorically they're enslaved in sort of a
like enslaved by the system kind of thing.
Right, enslaved by the
fits
system.
there,
But
not...
that's purely a metaphorical interpretation. The reason why slavery is so bad is because it's not just bad for the slave, it's bad for the master as well. And here's the reason why. Like with the Roman slavery, what happens is that you eliminate the middle class. It always ends up happening under slavery, because what you do is that the people that are very, very rich have slaves to do the work. They don't employ the lower class, because why would you employ somebody if you've got slaves to do that? So everybody buys slaves to do the work. Then the middle class can't seem to sell what they're selling, because the lower class aren't buying it. And so eventually you end up with a system with no lower class. Well, the lower class is the slaves, no middle class or very little middle class, and a very small upper class with just a ton of slaves owned. And that is one of the reasons, among many, I'm not saying it's the only one, but it's one of the reasons that the Roman Empire collapsed, was the unbalanced enslavement of people is one of the reasons why it collapsed. It's not good for the slave owner as well, not if you look at the society in general.
Yeah, that's a pretty transactional analysis, and I go more with the moral analysis. That it just
Both
doesn't.
valid viewpoints, I think.
It is hurtful. It is hurtful in both directions.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
hurtful in both directions.
Morally corrosive, maybe.
I agree.
Morally corrosive in both directions.
I agree with the both directions.
Just doesn't work.
I agree with the both directions, and I think that places like the U.S. Apparently, and I think it's pretty obvious, but maybe not for, still has a lot of leftover vestiges of that. And you know,
absolutely. In fact, the entire world, the after effects of colonialism, with all its subsequent trappings associated, is still 100% baked into cultures throughout the world. It has been such a massive impact on our culture that the after effects are going to be felt generations and generations and generations into the future, and it's really important to understand.
And generations and generations and generations into the past.
I think that's very true. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Stephanie. Forgive me.
No, you go ahead.
I think it's very true. I think that I'll just share this thought. I'm very happy with a certain thing that's occurred within the past 10, 15 years. Well, less than that, where you have the DNA testing companies, and people have been, but it's a double-edged sword as well. People have been taking tests across the world and finding, well, wait a second, why do I have this strange ethnicity popping up, and other people, while others are saying, oh, well, this is exactly what I expected. I am particularly based in this one particular place in Europe and whatnot, and this and that. But the consequence of these tests, and it's not apparent to everybody, but it's that, and the study of it is that if you look into the papers, there is no race category that can apply to separate human beings in terms of, well, that chart that that Amy was showing before with the letters that make up our DNA. It's just a series of combinations that recombinate every time people are born. And when people are born, it's like spreading the same genetics across the world, and people have different looks according to when they stayed in one region for X amount of time. They develop certain traits, but that doesn't make them different genetically whatsoever. And that's all found online freely for anybody, but it will take a long, like Mark said, a long time, at least on that level. This is not speaking on the moral and ethical level that Stephanie was mentioning, where you shouldn't need any of that. You should just, by a very basic moral, ethical level, realize. But again, we are victims of, and we are inheritors of a history before us. But yeah, the DNA thing is really cool if you look into it, where there are no racial variations, but that doesn't apply to somebody that wants to take advantage of another person back in the 1600s. It's the history that occurred.
To go back to
very quickly, when we've got a set, could I address Alosha's point about Exodus? Just at some point, I'd like to address that. But go ahead, Stephanie. I didn't want to interrupt.
No, you go ahead, and this is something I missed, but go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm just going to share my screen quickly so we can sort of see what we're looking at with Exodus 22. And I wanted to talk to Alosha about this because it's sort of, I'm having trouble seeing what they say that I'm seeing. So really we're looking from, it covers a Hebrew servant, and this is related to also that 7 years go free. So it's if you buy a Hebrew servant, and specifically a Hebrew, 6 years you shall serve, and in the 7th he will go out free for nothing. So there is a time limit on it. If he comes in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he's married, he takes his wife with him. If his master gives him a wife and she bears sons or daughters, the wife and children shall be her master's, and he shall go out by himself. What that means, if he's a slave and he meets a woman in slavery, marries her, and she's a slave as well, the master gets to keep her. He has no right to his wife or children, and he goes out for himself. But if the servant says, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free, and agrees to it, then they basically put an awl through his ear, and he is their slave forever, in perpetuity, meaning absolutely forever. And this is the part we came to. And if a man sell his daughter to be a maidservant, she shall not go out as the men servants do. So she doesn't go out on the 7th year. She stays in perpetuity. If she please not her master who hath espoused her. So this is if the master marries that slave that he's bought from the father, because does a man sell his daughter? So the master has bought her from her father. If they marry her, then and she isn't pleasing to him, she doesn't like him, then she shall let her be redeemed or bought back. To sell her unto a foreign people he shall have no power, seeing he hath dealt deceitfully with her. But pay attention, it's only redeemed to another person in the land. It's only a foreign power that prevents that husband selling the slave that he bought and then married. It doesn't prevent it being redeemed to another household or something like that. If you take another wife, her conjugal rights shall not diminish, which is lovely. He does not do out of these, she goes free. So if he doesn't treat her as a wife, once he's married her, now that's important, she goes out free. But the whole point is that a man selling his daughter to be a slave or a servant, but there's no situation where I would see a servant that you buy off of their father as being some sort of hired employee, right? That isn't a hired employee. That is a slave you have bought.
She's just a girl, after all.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's put the inequality, the brutal and horrific inequality to one side, because that's subjective at different.
Oh yes, let's always put the brutal inequality in patriarchy to one side.
Yeah, I'm not.
Let's do that.
Really, I'm just sort of making the point that.
Oh, but it's dripping with.
Oh, absolutely. No, I've no argument here. But the point was that Praise I Am said in the debate was that no, the father selling her was her bride price. Okay, that's the point that he made, and he harped on about it. Was the bride? I mean, I said dowry, and he said it's a bride price, not a dowry. A dowry literally means a bride price.
Yeah,
let's not split hairs. The bride price isn't paid when she becomes his wife. It's paid or it's not a bride price at all. It's a payment for their servitude to the father. That is not a bride price. It's not.
No, because you can't, in that culture, you can't have a marriage without a dowry.
She's not married yet.
Right, but it's not going to happen. And then that's why if it goes south, then she gets redeemed and the deal's off.
So, Alosha, if it's a bride price, then why does the master pay the father before she becomes a wife, and she won't necessarily become a wife?
Well, that's what it looks like is in the text there, and that's what it looks like it's addressing. In the case that he does do this and the guy backs out, then here's the remediation for that.
Right, but if just say that the master who buys that girl from her father never chooses to marry her, what happens then? He's bought her, and she becomes a maidservant, and he never chooses to marry her. What does she happens then?
I think if he does, I think he doesn't. She can become a concubine, but that with the dowry in play, that's the problem. You can't just have a concubine. The dowry meant a lot.
I'm I'm really sorry to interrupt you guys. I really am enjoying this conversation, but I'm a little confused as to like the family tree. So if you could just give like a really simple, she's the daughter of this person, this is selling her, that would be great. Thank you.
So a man, the father, so a man has his daughter. So the father has his daughter, and that's in 7th year. And that man sells his daughter to be a maidservant. Right, so a servant to another person.
Wait, Mark. Before you continue, let me set this up. If a man has a daughter and then he's a little bit short on change, well, okay, continue.
Yeah, he can sell his daughter.
Exactly.
So
You're coming back to my original point. It's
it's
wait
horrific.
a minute.
Don't get me wrong, it's horrific, but this is about slavery.
I'm just trying to understand. Like I
want
to
like
continue
slavery,
to listen, but
women are it's assumed to be disposable income, somehow or another. That's brilliant.
Well, yes, you can't sell a son like this. You can't decide to sell a son as a manservant, but you can decide to sell your. So if you're short on money, you can't sell a son. No, that the men have rights that they have to be in debt or something like that to be sold or to have to be forced into a sort of a position like this, but not the women. That you can just sell your daughter into slavery. So basically it's that okay. So just say I'm the father and I've got a daughter, Chantel. I just made up a name. I don't have a daughter.
Yeah, this is what I was looking for.
Right, so I've got a daughter. I can go to James W. and say, hey, I want to sell my daughter as a servant to you.
Okay.
And you will give me money.
Instead of me.
Okay. Do we really want to bring his name into it? Okay.
Chuck E. Cheese does.
He would be interested in the transaction, though.
Probably. Okay, so the horrifying mental image aside, where was I? Yes, I've got Chantel, and I say to Smokey, okay, so I've got my daughter. She is, I want to sell her. He goes, okay, and 14. He gives the money to me, not to her, gives the money to me, and I go, she's now your servant and possession kind of thing.
Okay.
Smokey then has the option to marry her, but he doesn't have to marry her.
Okay.
He keeps her as a servant. And
he can do with her what he wills, basically.
Well, there was some sort of rights that servants had. They couldn't be treated in certain ways, but the whole point is it wasn't like antebellum South slavery. I'll freely admit that. A misbehaving slave you could still beat with a rod, for instance, as long as they didn't die. If you knocked out a tooth, they automatically went free. If you destroyed an eye, they automatically went free. There were certain things that would free the slave. If you killed a slave, you were responsible for it. So there were a few laws governing how you treated these servants, but she couldn't just leave in the 7th year like a man could. So after 7 years, a man who was in debt slavery, they had sold themselves into debt. On the 7th year, regardless of whether the debt was paid off, they went free and the debt was cancelled. That did not happen for this girl. So Chantel is theirs. If they're not happy with her as a wife, they can redeem her only among Hebrews. They can't redeem her among followers, strangers.
It's like S&H green stamps.
Maybe.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
No
I was
problem.
really
I hope
confused.
that clears it up. This is written
very... would have to get the money back. You'd have to pay you back.
Well, yeah, essentially, if you want.
No deposit, no return.
Well, the important thing to remember, it's not if she's unhappy with the marriage that she's been forced into here.
Not her option.
It's not her option. It's if the master or her son, because it says you can sell them to the son, is unhappy with them. So the poor Chantel, who sort of doesn't have a choice in all of this. So if they say, hey, she isn't making me happy, they get to redeem her, not the other way around.
Understood.
And the the modern movement is that men are all slaves now.
What?
What?
I think Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm talking Jordan B. Peterson.
Oh,
okay.
I didn't pick up on it.
Well, I really want to hear if Alocia's got anything to say to that, where he thinks that I'm wrong or perhaps misrepresenting the text.
No,
at
I
all,
don't.
because-
I mean, she had the rights as a dowered wife, so yeah, she couldn't be a slave or prostitute. And if she wasn't married to either one of the sons or the husband, then yeah, they had to, you know, everything reverted. So she was redeemed. But yeah, the concubinage thing, and it's what I have in front of me says this is about marriage. So, but that doesn't get out of the sticky issue of, hey, this is an arranged marriage, and you got to go
It's
marry
vague.
this guy or one of his sons, and that's it. That's how it is. We're hard up for money, and there you go. So, but no, I think it just.
I guess my counter to that is it's not necessarily a marriage, right? So you don't necessarily have to espouse themselves to her.
What this
Yeah,
is speculative real
May
estate.
I just say that all of this discussion is lovely and all of this. Biblical slavery is fucked up. Biblical doctrine is fucked up. Biblical ideas of men and women are fucked up. The Bible is fucked up. It's not. This is not the way people ought to interact with each other. We can go through textual analysis to the nth degree, but at the end of the day, it's like, come on, let's start reading the goddamn Bible and the Bible. Pardon me, Pardon me, Mark. You said, you said I've let you talk. You've talked quite a bit. And if you'd let me talk, I'd like to rant on a little bit. Let's let the Bible be the same kind of story as the Bhagavad Gita, as every other old text that we can read and understand in contemporary, from a contemporary point of view. Let's look at it as fiction, because it is.
Can I interject, please, for half a second here? I disagree with what you would want it to be as far as in terms of, I would prefer that people do as they so please in terms of what they believe, think, and so on, under the umbrella of the modern world with the laws in place that we have and societies that we have with republics and so on and so forth, just as is, and that people happily can believe in what other people might consider fantasy, or what other people might consider space monsters or not, or what other people might consider reasonable and science-based, as long as the golden rules that we have established, due to the progress of time with all the collection of information and culture that we've inherited, I believe that people should just not damage, injure, create some sort of fraud against others to rob them of their goods. Those basic tenets that we already have established in the society. But as far as believing, let's let other people believe as so they choose.
I acknowledge
the
both.
problem with that.
I get
that.
Well, can I just say something quickly?
Sure.
I understand where you're both coming from. I really do. However, the debate was about this today, kind of thing. So that's why we're getting into it, because it is biblical slavery moral? So that's what we're talking about. And it's because other people put power in this book is the reason why we have to talk about it. If I lived in India, I may be talking about the Bhagavad Gita and sort of railing against that, but that's not the society.
So Mark, is your position that biblical slavery is moral?
No.
Okay.
Not.
In which case, you've made a good case as to how ridiculous the case for biblical slavery is.
Yeah, I think most of us agree.
I think you've made an excellent case, and looking at both the Hebrew and the English translation on my screen here, it's like, yeah, absolutely, it's completely ridiculous.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well,
I'm bringing it on to a larger a larger plane. This is but one piece of text in human history that we can, we could probably find as abhorrent pieces of writing in the Gitas or in the Vedas. We can find abhorrent stuff.
I disagree that it's abhorrent. I disagree that it's abhorrent completely. I'm sorry, Mark. I'm just going to say this little bit, and then I just think that what we're looking at, and Mark. So look, a couple of things. Mark, you're looking through this and you're reading through this, and you have a position. The other gentleman is saying, well, this is with marriage. You guys are doing what I think is the proper thing to do, investigating in a specific way. Although you're coming to, for obvious reasons, to both of you, including evidence, you're coming to conclusions. And I'm looking at this and saying to myself, well, this is a text that was trying to resolve within the culture that existed problems according to the boundaries that they existed and lived under. So I'm looking at this as just a matter of fact type document. The implications for the people involved, of course, were way different than me looking at it now. So I can't properly judge. But again, Umbrella, let me just finish this one bit. Let me finish this one bit.
Eli.
Let me just finish one bit. Let me just finish.
Just let Eli finish.
Umbrella-wise, let me just finish this one bit. Umbrella-wise, I of course agree with all of you, rounding home that the idea of slavery is just completely unacceptable. But I'm saying what you're doing now, looking at the text, I'm completely looking at it as a matter of fact, two people going back and forth trying to explain what's going on. And I'm totally fine with that. So I just wanted to share that.
Eli, I just want to ask what other gentleman you were referring to.
What?
Me and Alicia.
What?
Me and Alyosha?
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah, correct.
Because we're the ones sort of disagreeing. But the title of the debate is biblical slavery morally good? I mean, so if you're sort of arguing of, was it a necessity at the time kind of thing?
Yeah, I think
maybe
that's
it was.
Probably.
If you're arguing, was this thing culturally appropriate to their interpretations? Maybe, yeah. But what the problem is that you're sort of getting hung up on saying, oh, well, it was what happened, but is it morally good? And I say, absolutely not. When you have these situations where slavery exists, as I sort of pointed out before, the slavery isn't just bad for the slaves in that situation. It's also bad for the slave owners. It's also bad for the entire society. It actually, though their ignorance that it was a bad thing for all of their society doesn't make it morally right. It's still morally wrong.
Well, I mean, as a necessary evil and as largely an indentured servitude thing.
Necessary evil, still evil.
I know
necessary evil is nowhere to go to.
They may have thought it was necessary evil, but I don't think it was a necessary evil.
Well, I think in terms of in this passage where someone's obviously hard up for money or whatever their social situation is.
We don't know.
Yeah. Well,
buddy, so you sell your daughter? Come on, really?
Well, that's an arranged marriage, and that's okay in some cultures today.
But it's not okay.
Not for your
Arranged
daughter.
marriages are not okay. today.
Well,
Not
I
for your
mean,
daughter.
not,
That's
certainly
not
not in
good.
the West.
Is
If you
it?
look at a document today, United States currently, and you read a law in terms of what happens with murder, if a situation, so on and so forth, you would look 10,000 years from now and you would say, look, what I'm reading is horrific.
Sorry, I'm going to stop sharing. Sorry. It's all right.
But all that the law, if you take a law today, and 100 years from now, in some future civilization, they open up that document and they read and say, if you kill someone while under the trailer park and dig a hole and stuff them in there, and you read that and you say, look at this society, look what they wrote. Well, what's happening here with what you guys are doing, you're reading a document that was prescribing a solution to a problem, that guidance.
Probably a
And
really
we would do the
specific
same thing
problem,
going
too.
forward, looking back 100 years from now, looking at some sort of random document, and we'd think, well, this society was a complete disaster. But I'm looking at it more of it's a document and you're examining it. That's all.
Well, Eloy, I don't blame them. I don't blame them, right? But it's still morally wrong. And it's still wrong to try and justify it as a good action because of the time frame it existed in. It's the difference between blame and responsibility. I don't blame humans for doing bad things, but they are responsible for correcting them and responsible for learning from our horrendous mistakes. That doesn't make it any less of a mistake.
No, it doesn't make it any less.
If we can't call opprobrium upon the sins of the past, if we can't say that this way of approaching the enslavement of people is morally wrong, and we need to couch it in the term, and we need to make excuses for the terms of the time, then we don't make progress because we give permission to that same kind of attitude going forward.
I disagree and agree with you at the same time, because here's the thing.
Well, then tell me how you disagree, because we cannot make progress if we excuse it, if we excuse.
I agree and disagree.
The oppressions. If we excuse the Holocaust, we'll do it again.
No, but it's okay. That's a foregone conclusion. Of course, I agree with what you said as far as the morality of yes. But what I'm saying is the other bit that you're not, or it doesn't appear. So you're not giving enough. In my opinion, this is just my opinion, and of course, what does that matter except to me? But I think that a blend of what you're saying and what, and as an example, Mark and the other gentleman, Loisha, we're talking about by dissecting the document, whether they come to one, they're looking at a specific document. So think of an Egyptian person, somebody going to Egypt and finding some document, some scroll or parchment, and they look at it and they say, well, this is just horrible. Well, there's nothing learned there. You have to take it in various different routes. You have to look at it, examine it. Go ahead.
But it's not. But the thing is, it is horrible.
Yes,
right.
Slavery is horrible.
The Egyptians were known to enshrine their servants. Like, so when the pharaoh died, they killed his servants and buried them with him,
horrible.
so he would have servants.
We don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you, Steph. That is morally repugnant. It is wrong to do that. It's not morally good. We don't just say, hey, because that was the thing that they did at the time, that's perfectly fine. No, that's not perfectly fine. That's not cool.
Right. Nobody's saying that, though. Do you understand, though, Mark? Do you get my balance point?
I don't get what you're talking about.
Okay.
Because while I don't, look, I want to clarify. While I don't blame the people for doing what they did, right? I don't say, hey, those people are disgusting, horrible, evil humans because they acted according to their culture.
We can do better.
That's irrelevant, Stephanie.
I try to avoid doing that because it is presentism, and we have learned a lot since then. However, having said that, the action I make a moral judgment on. It is absolutely repugnant, odious, and irreprehensible for someone to think that that was morally good.
Okay,
It's awful.
Exactly.
Okay, so now, with all that you just said,
Yes.
right? I was saying, you said it much more eloquently. All that, plus
Mhm.
the mechanical, dry, unemotional activity of you looking through each word. This document that's found in the Bible. That's a collection of manuscripts that's put in one book. You're just dry, cold cut, looking at the document, reading into it. But what you're doing is you're analyzing the document with the other gentleman, and there's different slight opinions here and there. That activity is one thing
What
in
other
itself,
gentleman?
and the what?
What other gentleman?
Mark Alyosha.
Aloysia.
Alyosha.
Yes.
Okay.
Alyosha. To the
so-
left of me?
So all I'm saying is that, Mark, that everything you just said, I have no problem with. Plus,
Mhm.
you're just examining a document of history at the same time, and you need to be sort of like looking at it analytically and not emotionally. And you guys are doing the both things with slight variation. So there's two things going on. You're looking at a society in the past, and then you're making a moral judgment. I get it, but we're not them, but we are inheritors of everything that came from the past. Now, are we better now? In many ways,
Well,
we are. That's all I'm saying.
Eloy, I'll just sort of interrupt you there, because it's not only the Bible that we get this idea of slavery from. The historians just don't look at the Bible, and you might want to talk to an Assyriologist like Dr. Josh or somebody like that who actually compiles the evidence for those things. We've got a lot of early rabbinic sources that sort of are taken to show what was happening at the time, the kind of slavery that was happening at the time. Just because we're going through the Bible dryly doesn't mean we don't have other sources as well. There's the Mishnah, which was coded around the 3rd century. It's going through, sort of how a Hebrew servants are acquired with money and how they're exchanged, kind of thing. There's actually quite a bit of documentation on this. Just because the Bible's the only documentation for sort of the events like Moses and things like that doesn't mean we have no understanding of how slavery operated in the lands of Israel at the time.
I'm 100% swimming in the rapid water rivers of what you just said. Have no problem whatsoever.
Right.
Continue on, because my only thing was that if we go crazy emotional, right?
Mhm.
Well, you know what? Let me strike all that. Do that which each of you individually choose to do. I'm in agreement with what you said in the general sense of it, so I have no problem. Continue.
Okay,
All right,
so
go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no,
No, you're cool, Alicia. I've been talking a lot. You're good.
No, and then I don't know. It's either way you look at it in terms of the way the Jews handled slavery. It was a pretty mild version, or an extreme version of indentured servitude. There were a lot of safeguards around it. Yeah, it probably wasn't perfect, but it was what it was. And then you iterate into Greece and Rome, and that got really, really bad, because that was what everyone's talking about now. That was, you are a barbarian and I can have sex with you if I want, and wasn't happening under the Jewish law. And then the Christians take over Rome, and that tips over, and then slavery for some magic reason ends. And a lot of that has to do with the increase of
No, it doesn't.
No, it didn't.
No, it doesn't.
Slavery.
If
you go
no, it doesn't.
from 600 to the Middle Ages and all that, you end up with serfdom. You end up with forms of indentured servitude. And obviously, there are exceptions to the rule and all that, but that
You
was
rode 16 tons. What do you get? I'm going to go back to when I came into this.
So the first emperor of the Eastern Roman Empire was, of course, Constantine, right? He was the first Christian emperor. Sorry, I should say. That was the Byzantine Empire. Now, slavery was changed a lot into sort of, I think it's the 4th century CE
Right,
when
but
Byzantine was happening, but there was still slavery,
Sure.
Alyosha.
sure. No, but by
It
the
didn't
time
vanish.
you arc over into the late Middle Ages and all that, you see this, it dissipates. And then you see a resurgence of it, during the Enlightenment. But
What?
holding on to the indentured servitude model and that form of slavery, and just recently they passed here in America this $1 trillion omnibus bill, and I mentioned it in the other chat. We're $34 trillion in debt, and there's no way anyone living is going to be able to dispense
We're
to pay that debt
veering
off.
way off topic here.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm failing
No.
to see what this is
No,
to do with the
because when slavery is defined as owning another person's labor, what our government
You're just stretching that
Right.
definition way too thin for it to be
Not-
meaningful.
not
Way
labor.
off topic.
No.
I
Not-
agree with him.
Alyosha, not labor, they're rights. Okay, rights, not labor.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
do they
I'm
have
sorry,
the right
but
to
owning
not
human beings.
service that debt?
You know why this is a problem, Alicia? Because there are, and forgive me before I say this, but and don't take it in any way. I'm just thinking here. It's because there's also modern political lines drawn with different approaches as to how government should or what control government should have over its people. We see pushback on that. So it's a modern situation, and you're saying if we're in debt to the point of that, we're paying off now and into the future what others have decided that that we should pay, and it's a peripheral
We've-
concept
we've-
of
So,
a slave enslavement or attachment in a
We
different.
have created indentured
so
servitude
I just want to say
for our
something. to
children
that.
and grandchildren.
Well, I just want to say something to that. If it was just the people paying it off, yeah, I get where you're coming from, but it's not just people that pay taxes. It's also corporations. It's also excises on trade. It's also there's a ton of different taxation methods and ways of attaining capital for the government that are not just simply income tax on people or property tax on people. That isn't how any of it works. It's a complicated system, and countries are usually in an amount of debt, whether that's right or wrong, but that does not equate to some sort of slavery over the people because they have passed a large. No, it doesn't. I'm really sorry, but it doesn't.
I think you could more so argue that it's a form of coercion. It's not slavery.
Well,
yes, indeed.
might
Chattel
even be immoral,
slavery
but it's
is
not slavery.
substantially different.
And then more to the point, we have willingly elected these bastards.
Chattel slavery is not taxation.
You're really changing the subject, Alyosha. I mean,
No.
really, let's.
Well,
No, you are.
You are.
All
You
right,
are
if
seriously
you-
changing the subject.
All right,
A
if you have a
person, a
grandchild-
human being owning another human being is substantially different from the government extracting your taxes.
Alyosha, can you go live in another country?
If my government permits me to have a passport, I can. Yes.
Well, doesn't your government allow you a passport? What's going on there?
Well, you never know.
We'll have you apply
Anyway,
for one.
yes, yeah, I have a passport. Yes,
Right.
you can. And if the other government, if I want to move to Australia and I've got the right skills, they'll let me immigrate. They'll let me immigrate.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We've got a great immigration program. Absolutely. So why can you just leave, but you can't just leave slavery?
You can move from
What do you
one
mean?
tax haven to another, one tax collecting entity into another.
Correct. But
in a
that's
peripheral.
something. Go ahead.
So don't you think that you should pay tax to contribute to society?
No, I think that well, number one, it's a peripheral. So look, so the idea of having debt or being indebted to or being trapped.
Are you sovereign citizens or something?
No, just listen to what I'm saying.
Sounding
Well, no,
like
I'm an American,
Sounds
and
like
Americans. No, I'm an American, and Americans are different in what they think, but we started with a concept in the United States of
You are,
America.
you're very
I do
different.
want to say we do have a very specific rule on this channel. You're not allowed to say American. You need to say American. But okay, you continue.
American.
Well,
Do I have
well,
to say Australian? Australian?
Yeah.
Little bit.
you know what? It's
Oi.
Are
I
you
was
really-
on Amy. I was under the impression that the word was Merkin, but maybe not.
American.
you know,
That works too.
a lot
That
of
also
Americans, and there's over 300 million something. A lot of Americans have different ways, different concepts, different ideas. That's personal.
They're not
to them.
unique though. Like this is
They're not. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying something that I'm trying
Well,
to say.
big sounding
I'm not suggesting that. I know that there's human beings around the world, but let me just say my bit. You know, I'm not. Look, the great thing is that inside people's heads, you get to imagine and think and believe everything you want. That's a given, regardless of where you are from around the world. These different countries have laws that are not very greatly different, like you're suggesting, than one from the other, but they do have differences and variations, and there's also cultural variations. United States is very big. This idea that are you sovereign citizens or something because one suggests that one look, there's been people saying that no, we don't like taxes forever and a day. It doesn't have to go to some sort of strange cultish thing.
there's a
It's
difference
just
between
it's just
people.
a normal.
That's a lot of couching that I see from sovereign citizens, though. I'm not saying you are, but there's a difference between the random person irking on about, oh, you know, the tax man's after me, got to pay a lot, and then the sovereign citizens kind of coming in being like, so you know, we've all been born into a slave system.
Yeah, but these
It's a
are
little
assumptions.
different.
But these are like
Well-
assumptions, right? When somebody's saying something, if you take it on the merits of what they're saying and try to answer what it is specifically they're saying, as best you can, we're human beings. But if you focus on that instead of like coming in with some sort of crazed, you know, I think suggestion, I think that's not conducive. Although it's human to do, we often confuse each other's purpose. What I'm trying to do is defend what Aloysia was explaining as a peripheral, and you may not accept that, and that's fine. But guess what? Millions of people out there that we haven't talked to probably do believe that this is correlated, associated to one degree or the other, and I'm just confirming that I can see and understand what he is suggesting, that there's not just what you guys are kind of sort of hinting at where it's unrelated. There is a relation with what he's saying, albeit
No, there isn't. There's no relation between. There's no
It's helpful to
relation.
have. It's
There
helpful
is
to have
no.
definitions that we can work within, because this just
What
makes
is
sense.
slavery? Okay, let's go back
If
to
you make it
definitions.
slavery everything, the definition just becomes useless to work with. So
Right.
we do
Yeah.
have to stick within some parameters here of
Well,
this is what slavery
stick to
is.
the
I
raw-
mean, it's the international system, biblical slavery. I don't know as you can make a case for that.
Plus, here's the reason, Eli. I just want to say something real quick, okay? Because slaves don't have the right to leave that slavery to go off to find something else, some other way of doing things. Whereas you do, and Alyosha does. You can go to the United Arab Emirates where they have zero income taxation rate. They don't tax their citizens. But you don't want to do that because the inherently your society, the one that you have subscribed to, gives you rights and freedoms that you want. And with that comes an implicit responsibility to act according to that society's standards and obligations for being part of that society. You may not have signed a document for it, but it is implicitly understood that you follow the law, for instance, and contribute to the society. These are all things that we do because having the benefits of society, we have the obligations that come with them. And part of that, unfortunately, is taxation.
Well, I don't disagree with. I just want to say this one bit here. I don't disagree generally, but except for one bit, as far as our documentation from our revolution and our sovereignty in terms of creating a country, it says that we are created by our maker, that we have inalienable rights that are ours by God. So there's
No, it doesn't.
So injected into
No,
so
it
injected
fucking doesn't.
so injected into our. Well, listen, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I agree that we owe to the society to what degree we owe. There's abuses and so on, but this is a political
The
conversation. I was trying
Declaration
to.
of
Oh, son of a
Independence and the
gun.
Constitution of the United
Stephanie,
States are
can you
two
Son of a
separate
gun.
documents. Give me a fucking break.
Okay, that's nice.
Well, let him make his.
I just want to say that I was trying to support what Aloysius is saying in a
Leroy.
peripheral general. Go ahead. You know what? I can't. Go ahead. Go
Sorry,
ahead.
I just want to say one thing. Do you realize that under God was added to the Constitution? It wasn't originally in there. It was added in 1954 during the Cold War.
It was not added to the Constitution at all. It's not constitutional at all.
Oh, that's the Pledge of Allegiance.
Under God,
Pledge of Allegiance, yes. It's not. It's not. The Constitution says absolutely jack shit about God. It talks about religion. It does not talk about God, and it talks about Congress not establishing a religion. And if you want to go there, well,
Stephanie is 100% right. 100% right. There's several references in the Declaration. The Constitution has none. No, you're right, Stephanie.
Not in the Constitution.
I stand.
Yeah, the Declaration of Independence, endowed by their creator. That's that in
It's
there.
in there. That's,
yeah.
Okay,
that's
so
not really like a legal.
let me round the base half a second here. You guys grabbed onto the God situation, right, very powerfully. We have documentation on it, as Aloysius just said. But with that said, my main thrust here is that there's an association that's peripheral, and I was trying to support that, but you guys are focused on another thing. But to get back to the specific slavery fact, we're looking at documents that are ancient. We've moved through time. All those people in the past are our ancestors, and you can go and look. All those people, be it Jewish, all those people to a degree or another are our ancestors. We're the inheritors of that past. We're not there now, but guess what?
We're inheritors of Adolf Hitler as well.
I think you're really trying to imply like
inheritors of Genghis
sorry, I was
Khan.
trying to make a salient point.
We're not going to burn down society to rebuild something new with forgetting the past, because we'll repeat the past. We're looking at documentation. We know that slavery is wrong, okay? But to crap on the past willy-nilly, which a lot of people
one's doing that.
Nobody's cracking on the past willy-nilly.
Let Duchess talk, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, after you say F this and that, go ahead. You know what?
All right,
fine.
Duchess,
Okay.
go ahead.
I don't even remember. It's all good.
Well, I will say I'm going to interrupt everybody because this is the last 15 minutes. If you want to join the panel and tell us why biblical slavery is moral or immoral, maybe somewhere in between, who knows? Come tell us on the StreamYard, because we're moving to outros in 15 more minutes.
The water's warm. Trust me.
I want to hear from Duchess right now. To be honest,
unless you're into that.
She forgot her point, but if she has anything to say,
but please.
Oh, I just yeah. Eloy, I think nobody's cracking on the past. We can still analyze it and look at it through our own lens while not kind of passing our judgment onto them. We can still understand that what happened is bad and not assign this huge level of culpability. There is still some, don't get me wrong, a whole lot, but we can make that, we can do that as normal, rational thinking people. So
I think you're rational on saying that. I agree with like 99% of what everybody's been saying tonight, except that I'm worried, or kind of a little bit it's a little bit worrisome to just toss out the baby with the bathwater. But I refuse to say that the Hebrews were evil, the this and that. I refuse to say it, not because I have some sort of incredible passion that I want to throw myself out to no, because to look at history like that and then think that we're such superior moral beings that we know what's what. In 100 years from now, they're going to look at us and they're going to laugh because they're going to think we're pretty darn barbaric ourselves.
Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's like when they, when was it in, I don't know, 18 whatever, when they said everything that's been invented, that will ever be invented, has already been invented, or something like that, some famous quote. And
Yes.
it's like, how wrong were you?
I agree with you. I agree with Mark.
knowledge.
I agree with all of you guys. Amy, I, in the general sense of it, it's just a little smidgen of details that maybe I'm rubbing wrong in the wrong way, but
Eloy, I want to say there's the four words I have learned that I'm saying more. They're like, it's just adjacent to what you're talking about. But I've learned that the fundamentalists, they don't want us to lose tradition, family, community, and the new word I have to now talk about is culture. If I can cover those four words, I feel like we can keep the baby in the bathwater or throw out the bad parts.
I want to say something as well, that with these
Absolutely.
historical events, so a dialectical approach is a good thing when looking at these historical events. And by dialectic, I'm sort of saying see the bad and the good at the same time, right? So you take, for instance, World War II and all of the horrible things that came with it, say from the German side as well, absolutely reprehensible. And, you know, no one's going to argue that was morally good. However, they were really good at rocketry, and our rocketry would not be where it is today if they weren't so good at it. That's just a fact.
What's rocketry?
That doesn't rocketry, you know, making rockets,
The space program.
Shooting shit into space.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you. Maybe it was an accent.
No,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just blame the accent.
That's okay.
Everybody else does, trust me.
And technically speaking, Mark has to work on that accent day in, day out, because he does not exist. He is a NASA
I'm sorry.
show. Continue.
I've done a lot of work to make this accent completely incomprehensible to everybody. Okay, just acknowledge that and let's move on. Anyway, right. So the V2 program and stuff, like it was an amazing advance in science. That doesn't excuse the things that they did. It's still morally bad. It doesn't mean that every single German scientist was evil. It doesn't mean that every single German person was evil. We don't. But the things that they did were still morally absolutely reprehensible. You could say the same about America with dropping nuclear bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Exactly.
Morally reprehensible, but it did advance our knowledge of nuclear physics. Like these things, you can't look at these things and say, the events are bad. No, the things that people did were morally bad or good. It doesn't mean that nothing good came out of them. And that's just life, I'm afraid.
Yep.
And Mark, to add on to that, this is why I said I don't think that humanity has really changed a great deal since the species, since Homo sapiens walked the earth. I think we've increased in knowledge, we've increased in forms of compassion, but we've always had compassion. We've always had the capacity for being better, for apprehending our goodness.
I agree with that.
I wouldn't agree.
And things changed dramatically.
Yeah.
Like our lifespan has almost tripled in like not that long amount of time. That's huge.
That's
like,
true.
have you ever seen that in any other species? And even just the technological leap. Like I feel technology, especially even in the last 10, 15 years with the advent of social media, I feel like social media has changed our species as humans drastically, maybe more so than like any other.
Great minds. I tell you, Dash, I was just about to sort of make reference to the internet and the way that
Yeah,
we can
sorry, go.
communicate.
I just
over
want
the
to
entire world.
agree and disagree with both of you.
We've always expanded our ability to communicate with each other.
Sure.
And we've expanded our ability to empathize with each other.
Yes.
But along with that, we have maintained this instinct towards antipathy.
Well, I think
that
that,
I say. Give me a sec, okay?
sorry, I thought you just.
That we've maintained this ability to have antipathy, to have resistance to understanding one another. That is that it's it you know it, there's always this tension. There's always this tension between the social norms and the and empathy. I
Well,
mean,
I think
we've
can I?
gone through phases of uh, of of uh, of racism, of colonialism, of phases of oppression. We're in a hangover from that. We're in a hangover from from a European and colonialist period.
I'm gonna give it back over to you to Mark in a second. I just want to agree with both of you are saying, because I think on one hand, I think we are very much the exact same people that we have been for the past 100,000 years. On the other hand, also, we are getting better. And I do want to recommend
Yes.
Steven Pinker's Better Angels of Our Nature,
Yes,
because
well,
there are reasons why violence and certain crimes are going down as we become a more I was about to say enlightened. That sounds too arrogant. I would just say as we're getting more technology and people are getting accesses to communication and to help. But I want to hand it over to Mark and then the panel. Last 5 minutes for you. You'll be able to say whatever you want on your outros. But if you have a question for each other, now is the time. Is biblical slavery morally good?
Yeah, so no, I don't disagree with your sort of human nature, and our human drives kind of thing has always been the same, and that includes sort of the fight response, and all of those responses are exactly the same as they were. But I think with the advent of technology, we can kind of understand that the sort of segments that we originally were small tribes, we're not part of that anymore, and now we've gotten to the point, and I'll sort of use this as evidence that we have developed more moral systems, because we do have a United Nations Charter of Human Rights. We do have the Geneva Convention governing the treatment of people, even people that are involved in warfare. And you might say, hey, there's exceptions to that, but in the past we have never seen such a thing as really important. We are developing as we go along, and I think with that worldwide communication, we can start to see all of humanity as one group in an incredibly hostile universe. Or this is at least how I see it, that all of humanity is one small group in an insanely hostile universe, and that our best way to survive and thrive, become happy, is to all work together for that goal of making humanity's well-being the best it can be. I think that those kind of moral systems have been developed over time. They haven't come out of nowhere. They've come out of the mistakes that we've made, including the slavery in the Bible. We've realized that's a horrendous mistake. The people from the South using that Bible and using the Bible against slavery, I might add, so they're both for and against slavery. We've learnt from that to say, hey, this is so bad for humanity in general. That we cannot allow it to happen, and I think that is different than just taxation or whatever. I think we're talking about two things when we're talking about slavery and taxation. But Stephanie, I agree that our drives and the sort of things that make us human are the same, but I disagree that we haven't progressed. I cannot disagree enough. I'm sorry.
Okay, so
All right.
I want to talk to. Yes, the no, there is no defense of biblical slavery, because we have, as Mark said, progressed way beyond that. But It's a continual struggle. The things that you cited, the UN Declaration on Human Rights, these are things that are that were declared, but they're at risk. They are things that are continuously at risk. They've been at risk, and this is why they've been at risk forever. You know, it's we can go from the Magna Carta to the U.S. Declaration of Independence that's been cited, or the Constitution. All of these things are human constructions
Sure.
that can be remanded by further human constructions, which are retrograde. The impulse towards, you know, that King cited the verse that the arc of the moral universe bends towards justice. Well, only if we help bend the bow, only if there's strength enough in us to bend the bow in that direction. It would be. I don't have a God belief. I have a human belief. I believe in the capacity of humankind to bend the bow and string the bow and aim the arrow towards justice and human kindness. And, you know, as I look at what is happening it's only, what, 12 days into 2012? And in, I believe, 20 legislatures, there are bills that would make me an illegal human being. You know, that would make my life invalid as a trans woman. And I believe that the only hope that we have is with each other. I need people to fight for me.
Ramen. I think that.
And if you won't do it, then step off.
I will keep on saying that what the religious people, not the amazing individuals, but the people with hate in their hearts, when they try to use that word that we are degenerates and reprobates and all this for being LGBTQ, I always see it as some sort of projection. It is actually that their hate is degenerating on society. It kind of poisons it. It is something that it's actually a strength of, I used to say the West, of liberal, I'm starting to say just of secular society. Of society is the strength of society to protect minorities, women, and the LGBTQ. And it's actually what makes us strong. And so that's why they hate us for it, because it's not just the LGBTQ, but it's all our allies. We have convinced, I think, a good amount of everyone else to be on board and stand side by side with us. So with that, we are all going to go to our outros. But I think Stephanie,
like I said before, that this conversation is being recorded.
Is this
We're in trouble.
Soros?
The NSA?
Soros? The NSA? Yes. But we are moving into.
I'm so sorry, Stephanie. Is that the Tennessee bill that I'm reading about here? Is that the Tennessee one?
Pardon?
Or a different one? Well, I'm just trying to find that bill you're talking about so I can sort of reference it.
I think she said it's in a number of legislatures.
so throughout multiple states,
there
or is it a
one in
federal?
particular?
Yes, it's
step
throughout
or-
multiple states. The
okay.
most recent one was in Oklahoma, which would
Still on
basically
transgender.
it would outlaw any transgender healthcare at
What
all.
they're trying to do is they're trying to stop kids from getting any type of healthcare.
No, this is James. This is beyond kids. This is like
that's where they're
no, you
starting a
can't
lot
do
of it, but that's not where they're going to.
Well, that's where they're
how
starting a lot of it, but there's a literal bill that would prevent in Oklahoma that would prevent any health care for trans adults and children.
I think the courts
Well-
would have a big problem with that.
I think
denying people.
Yes, there is a big problem with that.
Well, we are going to go into our outros,
Big fucking
and we, Stephanie, you are actually going to be starting us off. We have been Midnight Ranting on Is Biblical Slavery Morally Good? And we have been having a lot of fun as we move into our outros. Woo! Thank you so very much, Stephanie, for being here with us. And we had a very lively, enjoyable discussion. And thank you for Midnight Ranting on Is Biblical Slavery Morally Good? What do you got going on out there on the interwebs? And what are your final thoughts?
Biblical slavery is not morally good, and in contemporary slavery to biblical ideology is not particularly cool. I got nothing going on. I'm trying to survive a broken down car, this broken down ragged Ford, and I'm just sort of hanging out on the interwebs and being grim.
Cantankerous.
Oh my.
Places.
But thank you so very much, Stephanie, for joining us on the panel. And all right, we're going right down the list. I feel bad, like I've totally said your name wrong at least once, but I keep on playing it off. But Alicia, I hope that you have had a fantastic time on Midnight Ranting. Is biblical slavery morally good? What do you have going on in the interwebs, and what are your final thoughts?
Biblical slavery, I think it falls mostly into indentured servitude. And I'm going to haunt Mark's channel. I still think, and if he doesn't like the national debt thing, then we could do consumer debt. But I don't think we've solved the indentured servitude problem. And that's probably a necessary evil to any culture. But yeah, for another time. And it was just great to be able to get a word in edgewise over here.
Thanks for coming on to the channel. We always welcome Christians.
More next time. It's like 20 after 11 in Alaska, and I'm going to bed.
Oh my! Well then, I hope you have a fantastic night. And it was lovely having you on. And you actually set us up. You set me up great because just by coincidence, Mark Reid, we have been Midnight Ranting on Is Biblical Slavery Morally Good? What you got going on the interwebs, and what are your final thoughts?
All right, bye guys.
See you, Aloysia. Take care. It was really good to talk to Aloysia, and Eloy was fantastic to talk to as well. Stephanie, fantastic to talk to you. And Duchess, never met you, but it was great to meet you. I hope to hear more from you because you had some really good points in there that I really agreed with. And Stephanie had some really good points that I really agreed with. I found I agreed with something from everybody tonight. Though I want to sort of just reiterate that just because something's indentured servitude and you're sort of forced into that position doesn't make it right. It's not right to put somebody in that position. And I don't think that indentured servitude and having to pay taxes are the same things. They're very, very different. Indentured servitudes where you don't sort of make a wage and that you're working for sort of, you know, housing and board while being charged for those things. It's a very nefarious type of slavery that basically puts you in a position where you can never get out. I think that there's other parts in the Bible which rise well above indentured servitude, especially being able to beat your slave, being able to sell your children, or rather your female children specifically. And Stephanie's right. The whole way that women are treated is absolutely repugnant in the Bible, and that's an entire other arc of why the Bible isn't moral. I'm currently finding out about these state legislations, and quite frankly, they're kind of really disgusting and disturbing. Why can't we have the same rights for people? The right to healthcare, the right to, choose where you want to work, the right to choose whether you want to stay in a country or not, the right to autonomy, the right to choose what is best for yourself. These rights are not to be given over to other people, because that is the very definition of slavery. And those people ages ago are not to blame for what they understood in their society, in their culture kind of thing. But it's the people that sort of say, hey, it wasn't that bad these days. They are responsible for the position they're taking, because they bloody well ought to know better. Owning somebody else as property is never morally good. It never is. There's no circumstance where that works out well, either for your slave or for the master that's sort of using them for labor. It just doesn't. It's a horrible
I like
system.
this guy.
Yeah, so that's my opinion. What am I currently doing? I'm currently trying to get as many debates as I can. Amy, reminder. I'm trying to set up some interviews with people, get some sort of content going. On Tuesday nights Eastern time, I do something called Aimbot, which is Am I Morally Bankrupt or Them, which will take situations off a Reddit channel to see who's in the moral right, who's morally correct and who's morally wrong, according to my particular version of secular humanism. And you're very welcome to disagree with that all you want. But I just do it for fun, because it's not as heavy as, how was the universe created, or, demonstrate evolution, or any of these other heavy topics. But I like doing it, and so I hope you'll join me. I'll throw my link in the channel, and it's good to see all of you. Sort of Hillary's emails, and I think Materius Dan and Titan Uranus I saw. It's so good to see all of you. Beamsy, I wish you could have come back. Much love to Caterpillar. I got to give a big shout out. She is they are wonderful. I do apologize. They are wonderful. Yes, so good to see you all. Amy, James, love you. Thank you for having me on. It's been wonderful.
Thanks for coming
an absolute
in after show.
Oh,
and,
my pleasure.
Being in the debate for whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry. I wanted to be there beforehand, and it was just got caught up, and I was like, oh no, and ran home, saw what I could. But I did go in and poke Praise After in his channel for you. So yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah, that was fun. So if you want to come on my channel and watch that, that was fun. That was interesting and entertaining.
Once again, you should come on his channel. All right, at this point, the maturity bar is completely gone. Thank you so very much, Mark.
What can you expect?
End of this show, it always is. Like, why would anybody expect anything different? Let's face it.
Exactly. I like to feel like we have a low bar to kind of hit, and that's what we have to aim for, those type of standards. And so thank you so very much. Mark Reid not only can read, but we were rated by Mark Reid. And so thank you so very much, Mark. Eloy, we have been Midnight Ranting on Is Biblical Slavery Morally Good? What do you got going on the interwebs, and what are your final thoughts on the topic itself?
How dare you?
I can't believe you'd say something so daring and yet so true.
Sorry.
I mean,
oh no, that's okay. I do it a few times a podcast.
I wanted to say thank you, Amy, for doing this, and for the conversation, James, for the original debate earlier this evening, and the back and forth that you had over there. Obviously, as I always say, I'm not on in terms of the religious part. I'm completely not on your side, but I am on your side at the level of these things that we've talked about. And you did mention, James, that you were a humanist, and that implies, and you implied a lot of individual whatnots that we hold dear in a roughly general. And I could be wrong, but I think that's you were mentioning a lot of those things, and I couldn't agree more. As far as the issue of, is biblical slavery wrong, from my point of view, currently alive in the 21st century, that and any slavery is inconceivable to me as anything that's palatable in this world. However, if I was looking at it from a, I guess you'd say, studying it, or I'm looking at something that happened in the past, and I'm quite aware that these situations, not to limit or reduce the act of slavery, but looking at it as all these things happening in a progression forward through time, and we've arrived at where we're at. So I don't want to minimize all of history and think that I am superior than those that came before. So I look at it as well as a document of people, Hebrews, Jews, trying to figure out to solve certain problems within the reality that they lived in, for better or worse. That said, completely disagree with slavery at every freaking turn. And I want to thank you guys for having these conversations. I am thankful, and I wish you so much all good things always.
Woohoo! Thank you so very much, Eloy.
Can I just quickly throw a hand grenade of a question?
Eloy.
Just Eloy, one question. Think about it while we're off and come back. Would God have known it was wrong at the time?
Oh yeah. Well, here's the thing.
Dun dun dun.
Here's the thing. You're not a believer necessarily, as far as I'm aware. I don't know the specifics.
Nope.
I am.
Good guess.
I don't think that. I'll put it this way. I believe that God, the Creator, our standards of what we think is moral and not moral is neither here nor there. Today, yesterday, tomorrow, or ever. In that, if God created us, whatever His rule is His rule, and if it's not palatable to you or I, so be it. So on that level, now I don't expect you to believe that. That's why I hang my hat on individuals believing as they so choose, and the forward progression of time allowing us to, as a society, arrive at situations where we agree not to kill each other, and so on and so forth. So it's a little bit more nuanced, but that's what I believe. And I thank you, Mark, for all the conversations you had with the other gentlemen, which I really did like that you broke down all that writing. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thanks, Eli. I really enjoyed talking to you. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you so very much, Eloy. Not at all. I thought it was a great panel. I really do want to thank the entire everybody that
one of the better
us
discussions
tonight.
we've had in a while tonight, actually. Yeah.
Exactly. It also, it just makes me curious what Praise's stream was like. It'd be interesting to view in comparison. I guess Mark kind of suggested the other Christians were suggesting kind of a fire zone. Yeah.
Use the word rowdy. Rowdy is the word I would use. I don't know if Alois will back me up on this, but rowdy is what
I apologize for my rowdiness.
Oh no, we James only allows me to say this once a podcast, but they who control the spice control the universe. But
well, this
yes.
is true.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something else.
Oh my, I can only imagine, but hopefully
my eyes are starkly blue, Amy.
Oh my. Now we're starting. But we only got really 2.5 because I'm just shilling at the end. Let's get Mark's lovely great, but also Duchess of Clutches. That's right. Mark is going twice. But that's right. It was lovely having you on. We have been Midnight Ranting on Is Biblical Slavery Morally Good? If you got anything on the interwebs, now's the time to shout it out. Or what are your final thoughts on the topic?
Sorry, am I? Yeah, okay. So my very hot, spicy take is that slavery bad. No, thanks for
Super spicy.
Sue. I wanted to drop the the cannonball there. No, thanks so much for having me on
Open up
and
the
for this
can.
being so like accessible. I didn't really, I don't know. It's the first time I've ever kind of jumped on. I've spent some time in like the Discord debate sphere, and people get pretty pretty actually spicy if they hear a woman. So I do actually want to thank Eloy and Alucia, I think, for well, and everybody that was on the panel, but specifically if I've talked to people who are religious leaning, they tend to have a very kind of jump down your throat as fast as possible kind of stance on things. So thank you very much for even just being respectful. Mark, it was great to have a discussion with you. I've really enjoyed your kind of
Your mentor.
rhetorical strategy in the past. Yep. I think my ending thoughts on it will be that I always like to think of things as, okay, can this offer an explanation while also not excusing whatever it is, the behavior, right? So can we look at things through our lens and say, yes, this is abhorrent, this is bad, but what are the kind of social factors that allowed this to occur? It explains it, but it doesn't excuse it, in the same way that I think a person should still be held responsible for murder or any other crime. They can have things that go on in their lives. It can explain but not excuse. And I think, yeah, I'll pretty much end it on that. Sorry for babbling. Thanks,
No,
everybody.
not at all.
Not at all.
You,
Thank you.
in fact, it's the theme of the show is ranting, and so
It's-
thank you so very much, Duchess, for coming
We
on.
do several shows a week, so you're always most
It's
of them are open
kind
mic,
of
so you're always
I
welcome to
love
come on.
you. It's kind of I love you, I forgive you. I mean, we can do that for the people in our past. I love you. I
Indeed.
forgive you.
And I think it is the headliner of the night. It is
Oh
the
boy, here we go.
reason why we are here, which is Gizmo. But we're also going to hand it to James W. So, James W., we have
gotta
been...
see Gizmo.
That's right. Well, we have been Midnight Ranting on Is Biblical Slavery Morally Good? I thought it was a fantastic debate. And what are your final thoughts?
Well, thanks everybody for coming to this awesome after show. Yeah, it was a fun debate. And it was a really good discussion afterwards. Like I said, so I think it's one of the better panels we've had in a while. Lots of robust discussion,
Agreed.
lots of these topics have a lot of nuance. It's such a big topic, and there's so many other things that it just kind of ties in with everything that you can go down, and so many tangents and rabbit holes and things to consider. It really is quite a whopper. But I think we got to discuss quite a lot of it tonight, which I think we all have our basic agreements that slavery is bad. It sucks. And if we can at least agree on that, that's something we can build on. And if we can't at least accept that, well, I mean, we're says something about the future, but I like to have an optimistic view that we are moving in the right direction. So thanks, guys. Have a great night. We'll be back probably later in the week for another show.
Thank you so very much, Gizmo, and also James W. But yes, I'll give the same shout out. The actual man behind the scenes. You're gonna take Gizmo. I was gonna say on tour, but at least make shirts or something. Make merch.
Thank you, Sea Science. He is an amazing cat, and Amy's got a couple cool cats.
And see,
over there too.
Who says that we cannot agree? Come to agreement, atheist or theist. We like cats. I think she's Buttercup is tuckered out after running everywhere. But yes, I also just want to send the quick shout out that I've been doing and growing. If you are a channel member or Patreon, you have access. I'm going to do a trailer because I feel like me saying it isn't even enough. I need to do like a, hey, supporters, guess what you gain access to? It's a show. We actually produce a show for you. Whatever topic that you want, we just hope that you're sharing expertise and experience with our audience, with the community. And we will do all the fancy work. How much time you get depends on the tiers and all that. However, if you would like to get mass produced by someone who has both of her parents are space lizards, that is how that works somehow, then you can help get produced. And so I'll help you make your podcast or whatever show that you're into right down below at Fiverr.
Unrepentant sodomite.
An unrepentant. Well, you know, I think you can tell a lot, not always, but like by the photo that that you get right after being arrested, and I think mine says everything.
Attempted sodomy. I mean, if you guys could have just given me like 10 more minutes.
I was gonna say 15 minutes, 5 if he's probably into it and doesn't have a lot of expertise with other people. So what am I kidding? 30 seconds. Anyway, what are we talking about anymore? We were talking about Midnight Ranting. We have been having a fantastic time. There was a few other. I'm gonna go over quick. This is like the extra because I don't like. This is the extra bonus round. I don't normally do this. So I'm gonna put James W back on screen. But like I have notes, and so here's what I have, and I just want so the slavery the praise after James. He went over first, no race yet, so like that was like a thing, and he went real hard on loving your neighbor. Also, BT Dubs, I checked out that PhD guy that he like quoted a bunch, and it turns out that it was a senior professor of Old Testament studies from Gordon Conwell Theological Seminar.
Yeah,
so
I'm sure most of these people he's quoting are devout fundamentalist Christians who are not exactly looking at it. He criticizes us for using liberal scholarship, but as
yes, and I could have picked any. I just picked a random. He made like a present to go like doctor, and my first note was like they not to get too political, but they jump all over like Dr. Jill Biden because her doctorate is in education, and that you are a doctor if you have a doctorate. But then they're very they better make sure that you know that Kent Hovind is like a doctor in like his ABCs for like kindergartners. Fantastic. But yes, and then there was
you mean him and Matt Powell play doctor? Is that
yes, a little bit different, slightly. I'll end on like the off-topic thing because I'll say like the spiciest thing that I got written, I think, from this whole debate. He got really angry at one point, and he was like, "You know what? I think James, if you're gonna say all that, well, I think you just have a trash morality." And I put that in quotes because I thought it was funny that you must have hit a note where he just kind of like he was trying to
that when he kind of got a little. He broke his composure a little bit, like he got angry.
Yes, he got a little bit angry, and then to illustrate this, and then I'll do my final my thing. My outro, whatever, just sending love to everybody because we do love everybody. Is that after he did this is when he made the point. He said, and I quote, "No good reason to torture and kill babies." And all I could think about in the back of my head, just for the 11th million time, I'm like, yeah, that's a really good. I feel like there is no good. James, can you think of any good reason why a group of people, babies, would get tortured and killed. I just can't put my finger on it. Yeah, those were just some of the notes from the debate.
The thing that I think that sticks out was, his saying that the massacres were not real, that those never happened. But the Bible says all loving, love your neighbor, even though the next page it says to massacre your neighbor, but that didn't happen. So it's all love.
Exactly.
And yes, we agree those massacres did not happen, but it certainly portrays it as if they did, and it was good that it happened.
Yes, and it's just because the book says like don't kill here, and then it goes on and it kills, and then they kill, and then they like kill some more, and then they're like yeah, but don't you see? But actually over here it says not to kill. Yeah, no, we saw where it said that, but we kind of have like the problem with like the killing here and the killing here and whatever. Okay,
yeah.
We all know our spiel.
And the more specific, when you interpret laws and you have something that's very specific, it always takes precedence over the more vague general laws, which is why, even though we're glad that they lost, the Confederate side claiming the Bible supported slavery was the more logically reasonable
Totally more
position,
biblically accurate
even though
yes.
we're glad that they lost and that the slaves were freed because the Bible is wrong. But
yes,
from an internal critique, their position is easier to defend, that the Bible does.
If I could just have my peak liberal moment for the night, it's if you have to have and worship two losing teams, I'm just saying, you really don't got things going for you. It turns out the South probably is not going to rise again. We'd kick your ass. But and it turns out that if you need to worship Mustache Man, you might need to make like your what is that? Oh my God, we're just kidding. I love everybody. Sponsored by Coca-Cola, Hug a Bear. Anyway,
like, oh, did you know that the Jews, they'll never be enslaved again. They'll never be forced to do labor again. You could never imagine them being carted off to camps where they'll be forced to work to death. I mean, you can't imagine something like that, could you, Amy? Could you?
I to quote the philosopher Cartman, I feel like they would have to be sent to a camp to concentrate. I feel like that would, I feel like that's been done.
They would never be like forced to do labor for somebody else.
But okay, I think that we've already know what the skeptics and all of the atheists are. In fact, I hope you all had a good time on this Midnight Ranting.
We certainly did.
That was great.
We had a good time. Is biblical slavery morally good? As we threw an after party inspired from the Standing for Truth debate between Praise I Am with our very own James W. on is biblical slavery morally good for a good time worth enslaving your neighbors. However, I do want to thank my co-host, James W., along with our guest, ding, ding. I hear it. It's in my sleep. I'm just kidding, Peter. I love you. YouTube.com/gotta go for it.
We do love you.
My co-host, James W., along with our guests, Duchess of Clutches, Bubble, Beamsy, Eloy, Atheist Jr., Mark, Aluja, and Stephanie. Woo, everybody! As well as all the people in chat.
At 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Check that out.
Who's doing a stream?
Debate review of Hovind Debate, Atheist Jr. I'm going to set an alarm and try to make that stream.
Hold on.
Hovind.
We got this.
Hovind Debate.
Hovind.
Yeah, Jay's doing one. I can find it for you.
Well, boom! Right down there, ladies and gentlemen. YouTube.com/Atheist Jr.
So fast. Wow.
Because the non-believers do not have to have holy wars. We don't split into denominations. It's amazing.
But we do.
Well, We have our little
Just for fun.
flavors and our little things, but we don't tend to, not always. The No True Scotsmans tend
we
to
don't-
be very non-existent.
But we don't split around it.
Yes.
Silly things.
Well, excuse me. I think we do. I'm just kidding. Okay. I touched it. Oh, that was my last thing. Okay, my last thing is that I always feel bad saying it, but Bubbles, please prove me wrong. I want to win you over. I'm tired of the anti-contrarian because he is not a what is it when the Abrahamic? So we will win you over. We will win you over. Well, we're already past. We're over past overtime. Thank you very much.
Pantheist? Isn't he some
Is he a
flavor of
pantheist?
pagan?
Yes, I think he is a
Polytheist?
pantheist.
I got trouble keeping up with what he is.
But I'm
Have
still
a few
sending
kids.
love. I see that, but I'm glad that Bubble has joined us. I know I know Bubble either passed out hours ago or he is at work or something. See Science,
The
I see
gnomes
you.
kidnapped him.
He tuckered his little self out.
It's Lovered. Yes, exactly. The gnomes put him into sleep, tucked him in.
Dear.
With that, I once again sending all the love. Also, our people in chat are awesome mods who make this stream so great, and lovely viewers like you who make this channel even possible. If you enjoy the show, please don't forget to like, follow on Twitch, or subscribe on YouTube. Woohoo! Because then you gain access to that bell icon, which when hit to all will send you reminders to see our premieres or join our live streams. Woohoo! Or hey, I saw this person at the end of the debate. Hey, leave a comment once the video's done. New people to this channel, they may be like, what the are you talking about? And it just sounds like your own voice, Amy. What are you talking about? This is a straight heterosexual.
Gay voice, Amy.
James, why do you always bring up the gay voice? Do you want to talk about trans, like what they have between their...
Actually,
the
I'm
subject
amazed-
is about biblical
What?
morality?
I'm amazed Sunflower
Oh.
didn't show up. He was at the debate
He did.
in the chat.
Also, I love...
I think he's blocked in the chat. Yeah.
Is he?
Titan's
Oh,
got
is he?
him on
But
the
okay, I gave reprieves to because I don't know. I can't handle against probably Titan had to like pour an extra glass of whiskey tonight, but I see Science and Bubble.
God only knows what Titan has because
I can only imagine, and I love. I mean, James and James.
Oh yeah.
And we all kind of love. We want everyone to say is wash, and we only disallow very few people. The few people who we have had, they probably deserve it. I haven't seen some of those people. Kind of get. I think they all got through away from the community. Yes.
Today, briefly he surfaced, and then he immediately left.
I saw even not even. What the hell? Not even Chuck E. Cheese Revenge, but his producer had was acting nice with Knock. Shout out to Knock, who cares about the Chuck E. Cheese? We should be talking about more YouTube content creators, Atheist Jr., the network group Tang Gang, and then Knock, the Raging Atheist. So you should all check them out. Anyway, hit that bell icon, leave a super thanks. He'll come out eventually. Hey. We'll read it back on the next episode. After the show, we'll be heading over to the Skeptic and Ranting Discord server. That's right, baby. The link of which is in the description below, along with all of our channel members. I almost want to unban him just so we can get through to his sexuality. I feel like his therapist isn't going to get there. So,
the closer we get to that, the angrier
Dr. Flower.
Exactly, Dr. Flower. Please tell us, Dr. Flower, what we got going on. We're getting there. I swear. Channel members, they're amazing.
Welcome back, Titan.
Welcome back, Titan. I'm sorry if I had to drink. Yeah, no. Oh, you drink coffee and water
Yeah,
only and
Titan
smoke
drinks
some
coffee
tobacco.
and water only. Yeah,
How do you drink your coffee? That's the question. Because I drink
exactly.
so much cream and sugar, unfortunately. I could probably drink it black, but I would do it with like a begrudging face on my head. Anyway,
Depends on
the
the
best
weather.
way to
It could be
support
really
us
bitter.
is by checking out our Patreon at patreon.com/AVNewman and becoming a supporter, which helps us create all more nonsense. Oh my Jeebus. Woo-hoo! I
That's
am
We
a
lost
Newman.
that.
brilliant.
And we'll see you all on the next episode of Skeptic Ball Z. Good
Good,
night.
everybody.